I am Pharmacist Ben, although I don't go by that. I just go by Ben. But that's kind of my moniker that Dr. Wallach gave me. Somebody wrote on YouTube, is his first name really Pharmacist? I thought that was funny. No, that's not my first name. You know what? I hated that Pharmacist Ben thing for a while now. I roll with it these days.
Oh, you don't like it?
No, because pharmacist, I'm a rogue pharmacist. Like when people think of, you guys know me, so you know the kind of pharmacist I am, but when I go out there and tell people I'm a pharmacist, they're thinking like, would you like that generic, sir? Or, you know?
Sure.
Yeah, like how it count, we used to call it in pharmacy school, we used to call it count, pour, lick, and stick. And it was said very derisively, because that's what pharmacy kind of devolved itself to. You know, real pharmacy is making medicine. Real pharmacy is when you actually have a mortar and pestle and you look at the person and you figure what herbal material, botanical material, medicinal material you want, and you put it in a mortar and pestle and you give it to the person. That's what I wanted to do because I loved chemistry. And then you go to pharmacy school and you're learning drugs. You know, it's like the drug companies, the pharmaceutical industry co-opted pharmacy. So now when we say pharmacist, we think pharmaceuticals. Because that only really started to happen in the turn of the 20th century. Maybe the late 19th century it started, where drug companies realized how much money they could make, and if they could start this whole pipeline and industry where the pharmacist was basically working for the pharmaceutical company, they could make a lot of money, and it's exactly what we have. It's devolved or evolved, depending on how you look at it, into a system where everything's set in place. Like you go to the doctor, and you don't know this, I know this because I'm filling the prescriptions, or I was. When you go to the doctor, it was really funny, sometimes there'd be a cold. You know how there's cold season? Some people would have colds, like everywhere you go, everybody had colds. So there were these little spells where a bunch of people would have colds. And nobody knew this, but I knew this. There would be 100 people, and it'd be, we would always dread going into the pharmacy. It would be like early in the morning, I'd be like, oh, God, look at Kmart, it's going to be tons of people, and their phone's going to be ringing off the hook, and everybody's going to be, because I knew when it was wintertime or when it was cold, there would be a bunch of people getting their cold medicine, and they didn't know this, but they would all go to the local doctors, and everybody would get the same damn prescription. Every person, the same exact prescription, amoxicillin 30, 1 TID, and a cough syrup, pertussin, 1 tablespoon twice a day. Every person, one after another after another. It's because that's the way the system has devolved into this kind of commoditized pipeline where you have high blood pressure. I can be psychic and predict what they're going to give you. You're going to get a beta blocker, you're going to get a diuretic, you're going to get an ACE inhibitor. There's this standard way of doing it. And or if you have heart problems, you're going to get a statin. Boom, boom, boom. Just automatic. Automatic. And I once asked a doctor, they don't do it as much anymore, but they used to prescribe antibiotics for viral infections. An antibiotic kills bacteria, but it doesn't do anything for a virus. A virus has got a shell, and it's much harder to deal with than a bacteria. And so, they would give amoxicillin, which is an antibiotic, for viruses. And one time, and they would do it all the time. They wouldn't even think about it. It would just be automatic. And one time I asked a doctor, and I said, why are you giving these people antibiotics for viruses when you know good and well, everybody knows they don't work on viruses. And he said, that's what the patients want. The patients expect a prescription. They expect something. They don't think they don't think they're getting their money's worth. They don't think the doctor's doing their job if they don't get a prescription. And that's just a mark of the conditioning we're under on how we treat disease, how we treat illness. It's automatic. Said your dad had cancer. That's probably the most horrific thing anybody could ever hear. You see this commercial where they have now where the doctor tells a lady about she has cancer, and then all of a sudden the lady is lost, and you hear this. You can hear the doctor off in the distance, and the camera looks at the lady, and you can see that she's not even listening. She's just freaked out by that word. And I sometimes wonder what I would do if I heard that word. And you gotta have so much compassion for your dad and for people who just hear that word, let alone have the disease. Just hear them. Imagine the moment they hear the word, right? You can just think of what goes through somebody's head when they hear that word. It's a rare person that's not going to be totally freaked out. And so, what I tell people when they have cancer is, the trick to dealing with cancer and the trick to dealing with disease and the trick to dealing with all your health challenges is not to deal with your disease and your cancer and your health challenges. Forget about the cancer. Forget about the disease. Make yourself strong. Make yourself powerful. Make yourself better on all the levels. And once you look at it that way, you realize there's no drug that can do that. There's no drug that can make you powerful. There's drugs that can get here and get here and get here and get here, shut this system down and shut this biochemical pathway down and kill this cell and do this and that. But none of them can make you stronger and better and more powerful. And ask yourself this: if you are strong and powerful and you leverage all of your body's resources, are you going to have a disease? No. A disease is a dis-ease. It's when the body is out of ease. So the trick to getting healthy, and the trick to your dad is forget the cancer. Just treat himself like tip-top, the best food, as little food as possible. Exercise, get on a nutritional supplement program, praise God, be grateful, activate the parasympathetic nervous system. And the good news about that is, number one, it works, but number two, it frees you. It liberates you, because you could do that from the comfort of your own living room. You could do that from the comfort of your own home. You know, you could do all the strategies that are required to make you healthy are ours. But we've created a system, a pipeline, a commodity system where the goal is not to get you better, the goal is to get you in the system. The goal is to, what is a corporation really? A corporation is like a person. You guys know all this about the corporations being like a person? Have you heard this? Corporation is like a person, right? Except it never dies. And it doesn't bleed red. It bleeds green. Because a corporation's lifeblood is money. In fact, if the corporation doesn't make money, the CEO can go to jail. If the CEO violates his fiduciary obligations by giving you free anything or whatever, he goes to jail. He has an obligation to make sure that there's green. And so if you have a corporation that's a healthcare corporation, that is, it's one thing to have a corporation that's a computer corporation or a social media corporation or, a car company. That's okay. I mean, there's problems there too, because they're still looking to screw you. But when it's your health, that's fucked up. Okay? That is really messed up. When they're playing with your health and they're giving it into this corporatocracy that bleeds green, that uses you as a resource, you are an asset. How does that feel? You're an asset. I don't want to be anybody's asset. I'm not an asset. You don't want to be some part of a company, part of the income stream of a company where all you're seen as is a stream of income. So you end up with a system that doesn't necessarily want to heal you, doesn't necessarily want to make you better. It wants to use you as an asset, as a resource. And while that sucks really bad, the good news is you guys now know this. So now of course I'm preaching to the choir here, right? But the information is available to anybody. You can free yourself from the medical model anytime. But the conditioning is such, the hypnotic trance, that everybody's under is such that when push comes to shove, you'll probably go to the doctor. Don't you?
Very slick marketing.
Right? It's very slick marketing, exactly. It's incredible marketing. I have a degree in broadcast journalism, and I wrote copy. When I graduated college, one of my jobs was to write copy. So I'm very sensitive to copy, and I'm also a pharmacist, and so I know when I listen to pharmaceutical advertising, I'm listening to it with two hats, or from two perspectives. One is the perspective of the copy, and the other is the perspective of being a pharmacist and knowing good and well what that crap is. I know how the sausage is made, and I spent 5 years in pharmacy school. I spent 5 years in pharmacy school learning about the toxicity of these things, so you ain't fooling me. But then I have this other hat I wear, which is as a I've worn, which is as a copywriter. So I'm listening to the ads. And I can see, the cholesterol commercials, those people with the cholesterol, they're skydiving. They're like hiking. They're riding ATMs, all-terrain, or ATVs, all-terrain vehicles. I mean, they're psyched, they're happy, they're strong, they're buff. That's not the people getting the cholesterol medication. That's not the people getting the prescription drugs. But the idea is that there's this thing called association that marketers use in commercials where they'll put a movie star and they'll put their product. Or they'll put a bodybuilder and they'll put their supplement. So you make these associations and you do them unconsciously, and they do it with the drugs. They do it with the medical model. But if you just wake up for a split second, you go back to sleep, but if you wake up for a quick second, you'll see we're not healthier. We're sicker than we ever were. We got more doctors, more drugs, more devices, more of every possible accoutrement you possibly have for the medical model to interface with your body, to somehow get in your body. But look at us. Longevity drops every year. I was just reading this thing. They said everybody should be happy about this. Toddler obesity rates are dropping. Yes. We have less toddler obesity. Yes. What? I didn't know that was a thing, toddler obesity. I knew there was childhood obesity, but I know there was toddler obesity. And actually, no. They said that toddler obesity dropped when Obama had some kind of food program for infants, and now it's gone up. So it dropped. That was the thing. But the point is that we're falling apart by every single marker. Even if, every marker. There's no markers. There's no health markers where we're getting better, I don't think. Certainly not the chronic disease markers. But the good news is, and that's what the title of this talk is you can use nutritional supplements to get stronger and to get better. In fact, you have to use nutritional supplements to get stronger and better. And I should be really clear that I don't even like that I have to take nutritional supplements. I hate that I have to take nutritional supplements. I wish I could get everything from celery and broccoli and fish and whatever. We could get everything from our foods. That ship has sailed. That ain't happening no more. Okay, so supplementing is a must if you're going to be maximal, or if you're going to be able to leverage your health maximally, especially if you're sick. And one of the good things about being sick, which you guys have, I'm sure you've heard me say before, is the sicker we are, the faster we turn it around. The more deficient we are, the faster the body absorbs nutrients. It's like a dry sponge, sucks up more water than a wet sponge. So the good news is once you start pounding nutrients, saturating the system. That's what supplements do, is they saturate the system so that, let me get my blackboard here. My blackboard. So this is what it's all about. Can everybody see? Can you see it on there? So this is what it's all about. Anybody know what this is?
Gut.
Nope. But it's funny you say that, because yes, it could be the gut. It could be like a cross-section of the gut. It could be a lot of things. And that's the way the body's built. It's built in fractals. So that you have, it's like a stalk of broccoli. There's a big stalk, and then there's little stalks, and there's little stalks of that, and little stalks of that, and little stalks of that, and they all look the same. Those are called fractals. And that's how the body's built. There's basic fundamental shapes, and that's good news because that makes it easier to deal with things. But that's a whole other story. So this is a cell, and that's what it's all about. The cell makes stuff. That's what it's all about. It starts with the cell makes stuff. Simple as that. And you guys have heard me probably, I know you've heard me talk a lot. I try to simplify things. I try to make it, the body has been so complexitized. I don't know if that's a word. Made complex. We treat the body as this complex system, and it is complex, the way the gears of a watch are complex, but it's simple in the big picture. Very, very simple. This is everything, this is all of health right here. The cell makes stuff. Guess what? When you're sick, somehow something has disrupted the cell's ability to make stuff. Now, interestingly, sometimes the cell will make stuff that will slow things down. See, the body's constantly moving, and you don't want it moving too fast, you don't want it moving too slow. There's a sweet spot. And sometimes stuff slows things down. When the stuff that slows things down breaks down, you get cancer, you get psoriasis, you get tumors and cysts, you get growths. So sometimes the body can make too much stuff because the braking system is defective. So how the fast this thing goes is not as simple as the cells make stuff, in the sense that sometimes you don't want the cells to make stuff. Sometimes making stuff is not making stuff. The point being, however, if you get past that, the cell is active, it's doing something. And we want to figure out how to keep that cell in business. And that's all supplements do. That's all nutrition does. The cell is constantly reading the environment. This is a phenomenon that in biochemistry called signaling. Have you ever heard of this? You've heard of signaling.
Well, the cell is where the soul lives.
Cell is where the life force lives, yeah. I mean, hang on to that thought. We'll get into that in a second, because that's a very interesting thing you just said. So the cell is reading the environment constantly. And it's reading it for the same thing, because everything's a microcosm in fractals. The cell's a mini version of us. Albert Einstein said, if I could talk to God, I would ask him, is the universe a friendly place? That's what Albert Einstein wanted to know from God. One thing he wanted to know from God, is the universe a friendly place? And that's so interesting, because that's a fundamental question that we all ask. Is the universe a friendly place? We don't ask it that distinct, like we're not saying in words, but when we walk into a room, we're saying, is that room a friendly place? Or when we meet a person for the first time, we're saying, is that a friendly person? Or when there's a food, we're saying, is that a friendly food? We're constantly assessing our environment for friendliness or not friendliness. And the cell is doing the same thing. See, the cell has got two modes of action. It's either on or it's off. Again, this is very, very simplistic because it's actually zillions and trillions and quadrillions and whatever, on and offs. But generally speaking, on and off. When it sees that the world is safe, it turns on. When it sees that the world is not safe, it turns off. That's health in a nutshell, right there. When the cell reads the environment and says the environment is safe, it blossoms. Just like when you come into a room and you know everybody and they're all your friends and you love them, it's safe, as opposed to when you come into a room and there's a threat. And we're hardwired to do this. Our ancestors were the ones who did that. So we're the descendants of ancestors who did that, because the ancestors who didn't do that, they died and they didn't have kids. We're the survivors of a line from an evolutionary line that developed from people who responded in this way. And our cells are the same way. Our cells are evolved to turn on when it's safe, to turn off when it's not. Because if it turned on when it's not, it wouldn't be, evolution would have gotten rid of it a long time ago. So the system is built in this way, on, off, based on the environment. You know what this is called, by the way? The reading of the outside environment, the assessment of the outside environment, the ability to interpret or process what's coming in from the outside environment is called information processing. The cell is an information processor. Where have you heard the term information processor? Tech. Exactly. And you know what biologists call cells today? They call it wetware. You got software, you got hardware, you got firmware, now you got wetware. Because the cell is an information processor. It is transducing data. By the way, how it's doing it is ridiculous. It's a whole other story. Okay? It's transducing data. A cell is an information processor. It's constantly reading the environment. The reason nutritional supplementation works, and it's so important, is because nutritional supplementation provides or delivers everything a cell needs in large quantities. So when the cell is reading the environment, it's seeing lots of vitamin C, it's seeing lots of vitamin E, it's seeing lots of amino acids, it's seeing lots of fatty acids, it's seeing lots of what it needs. You know what it says? It says, yippee! Let's get going, let's do it, let's move, life is good. So a cell is constantly reading the environment. This is where we're at here. We're trying to simplify health, and talk why nutrition works and why drugs don't, and how this hypnotic trance we're under needs to be broken, the spell needs to be broken. So, and spell, by the way, comes from language. Did you guys know this? A magic spell, you spell a word. Spell is created in language. So it has to do with how we think in thoughts and words. And we want to start to think along these lines instead of, oh, I'm sick, I'm going to the doctor. That's a spell. That's language. Oh, I'm sick? Let's put some signaling molecules into the local vicinity of a cell. Anyway, cell's constantly reading the environment. The environment comes to the cell through the blood. Cells are sitting in a soup. You have 100 trillion cells. Sit with that one for a second, right? And all 100 trillion cells are sitting in fluid. They're bathed in fluid. And that fluid is constantly informing the cell, for better or for worse. The fluid is derived from the blood. It's not you could even think of it as the blood. It's a little more tricky than that, and since you guys are motivated to come here, I'll just give you a little bit of how it happens. This is the blood. And stuff leaks. This is at the air. You know, when we think of blood vessels, we think of big blood vessels. But right next to a cell, the blood vessels are microscopic. That blows me away. I don't know if that blows anybody away. How can you have a microscopic vessel? You know, like a tube that is so small, it's like microscopic. How? Isn't that a bizarre concept? And yet, that's how our bodies run. It's got 50,000 miles of blood vessels. 50,000 miles of blood vessels. Isn't that ridiculous? And the vast majority of it is the reason. You can see if you have, how do you have 50,000 miles of anything in your body? It's because everything is microscopic. And the microscopic nature of the vessel allows little pieces, the tiniest little pieces of your hamburgers and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and Captain Crunch and Twinkies and apples and pears and whatever you eat, the tiniest little piece of Captain Crunch comes out of a vessel. A little Captain Crunch particle comes out of the vessel. I'm kidding, of course, but it could be a natural flavoring chemical that's in the Captain Crunch, or it could be glucose that's in the Captain Crunch. That's basically all you're going to get, actually, now that I think about it. It's either going to be glucose or a flavoring chemical in your Captain Crunch. If you're lucky, you may get a vitamin or two. But anyway, it comes out in one particle, and it sits in this area, in this local area. And this is the reason why digestion and digestive system, and if you hear me on, I feel like people got to be sick of me saying, do a food diary and find your problem foods and do a fast. But this is the reason why that's so important. Because the blood is where everything gets to the cell, for better or worse. If there's crap in the blood, there's going to be crap in the cell. If there's good stuff in the blood, there's going to be good stuff in the cell. So the reason supplementation works is because the dosages of supplements allow you to saturate the system. Now, it's unfortunate we have to saturate the system, but we do. Saturating the system with the nutrients forces things upwards. It makes it easier for the cell to respond, and the cell then sees the world as being safe. So what you're doing when you're supplementing is you're telling the cell it's okay to make collagen. It's okay to make white blood cells or antibodies. It's okay to make neurotransmitters. It's okay to make digestive juices. You're signaling it to it that it's okay to live life, to be okay. If you didn't have resources, it would go to sleep. It would gradually go to sleep and then ultimately would die. But first it would go to sleep. It would slow down. It would down-regulate. My favorite word in biochemistry is up-regulate. The concept of up-regulation and down-regulation is fundamental if you're going to understand how the body works. When we're aging, we're down-regulating. When we're sick, we're down-regulating. When you're healthy, when you're happy, when you're vigorous, you're up-regulating. You're making more of everything. You make more of everything by giving the cell all the stuff it needs to do its work, or giving the cell all the stuff it needs to let it know it's safe to do its work. There's two kinds of chemicals in the body. There's the kind of chemicals that build the body, and there's the kind of chemicals that signal the body. What we call the mighty 90 essential nutrients are mostly signaling molecules. They're not the building molecules. The building molecules come from food. They're the proteins. Mostly they're the proteins. And then the body can actually make some of them. Those are the fats. But when we take the mighty 90 essential nutrients, the mighty 90 essential nutrients are signaling molecules. They're molecules that tell the cell it's safe to do its business. Now, there's all kinds of specific roles, specific signaling roles that the vitamins play. For example, vitamin C plays a signaling role in making collagen. Vitamin A has a signaling role in telling cells to grow and divide. Vitamin K has a signaling role that helps the blood clot. These are all signaling molecules for different things, but generally speaking, they're telling the cell it's okay to either clot or divide or make collagen, all the things that we want. So the key is you want to saturate the system with signaling molecules. And by the way, that's what my skincare products are about as well. And that's why my skincare products work to heal the skin. I didn't want to, not necessarily here to talk about the skin, or my skincare products, but since you brought it up, or wait a minute, I brought it up. I thought when I had a wound healing pharmacy, I was like, okay, if there's signaling I was studying signaling in pharmacy school, we studied signaling. It's like, if we can signal the cell internally with food and with nutrition, maybe we can signal it topically, and it turns out you can signal skin cells topically, or you can amp up signaling through topical means with vitamin A and vitamin C, which makes vitamin A and vitamin C two critically important signaling molecules for the skin. So a little tip for skincare, if you want to have healthy, beautiful skin, and that's why you put that transdermal C serum on your skin and it healed your cut. If you want to have healthy, beautiful skin, put the two most important, or actually the only two signaling molecules that you can put on top of the skin and have them signal the cells down below, and that's retinol and vitamin C. And if you can't find either of those, just ask me and I'll tell you where to get them. Right here, at The Truth. And you use The Truth.
I use all of it.
Yes. So in small amounts. Have you used it on cuts? Have you seen what happens?
Yeah, they like heal my burns and the skin.
It's exactly what I'm talking about. is what I'm doing is I'm putting signaling molecules into the skin. Turns out that vitamin C and vitamin A can go through your skin. That's really cool, that you have ingredients that you can put on top of your skin, and you can signal the cells down below the same way it's done through blood and through nutrition. Point being, upregulate signaling molecules. That's why nutritional supplementation works. Now, and I was saying that, I started talking about your dad with cancer. Classic example of cells that are down-regulated. When cells down-regulate too much, when they reach a critical threshold of down-regulation, they'll switch into a primitive way of existing. See, there's two kinds of cells. There's primitive cells and there's advanced cells. Primitive cells are also known as bacteria. Bacteria, I should say, are a type of primitive cell. Primitive cell is a cell that has certain characteristics. An advanced cell is a cell that has certain characteristics. An advanced cell, which is human cells, animal cells, plant cells, advanced cells, have really cool structures inside. And they give up their independence for the plant or for the animal. A liver cell, if you take a liver cell out of a dish, out of your liver, or a gum cell out of your gum, or a skin cell out of your skin, you put it in a petri dish, it will act like a cell. It'll go to food, it'll run away from food, it'll do all the things like an animal. Cells like a little animal. But in the body, animal cells give up their independence so that they can become a liver. A hepatocyte, oocyte means cell, a hepatocyte, a liver cell, has given up of its independence so it can, for the team. It's taking it for the team. It's dying for the, it's like doing a Christian thing. It's dying for the good of the world, of the liver, its world. Isn't that cool? That a hepatocyte does that, an osteocyte does that, a keratinocyte does that. You know, all the cells give up their independence. When you have cancer, that's the end result of a cell that has been starved, that has been suffocated, because oxygen comes in through here, and that's another signaling molecule I didn't tell you about. Starved, suffocated, or toxified for so long, it's like, doesn't know what else to do. So what it does is, it goes backwards to primitive times and starts acting like a bacteria. It becomes a primitive cell. It goes from being an advanced cell to a primitive cell. And a cancer cell is no longer a liver cell. It can't be a liver anymore. This is what makes it cancerous. It's no longer liver. It's like, screw you. I have been starved. I have been suffocated. I have been toxic for so long. I am not being a liver. I am going to go off on my own. It's a rogue cell. It's a sociopathic cell. It's like what we do to people, you know, when we abuse them, when we abuse children, they become rogue. They become criminal. They become sociopath. They're not loved. That's what a cancer cell is. Now, by the time we all have cancer cells. There's a bunch of cancer cells in here right now. They're coming and they're going, and the body clears them out, and this is just part of life, part of the life we live. I don't know if it's inevitable, but part of the life we live, cancer comes and goes, cancer cells come and go. But over the course of time, as the cells become starved and suffocated and toxic for long enough, they just had enough, and they click back into this old primitive way of being. Which means, for cancer, what you want to do is be kind and loving to your cells, as best as you can, with supplements, with food, good quality nutrients, with all the strategies that we can talk about here today, everything you can think of to leverage the health of the cell. And I should say this now because I usually start off by saying it, but I forgot to say it. It's really important. I know you've heard me say this before, but we should always reinforce it. Spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, in that order. Spirituality has to be leveraged if you're going to be maximally healthy. You're going to be 100% healthy. You may be able to have a good physical well-being, physical status for a certain amount of time. Your physical well-being may be good for a certain amount of time. But if you are spiritually incorrect, it's going to show up. It's inevitable that it's going to show up. And I've been working with patients for 30 plus years, yet to see somebody who's in crisis that's not in physical crisis, that's not also in spiritual crisis. And by the way, spirituality to me is not religious, or it's not, you know, New Age, hippy-dippy, Boulder, Colorado spirituality, you know. Spirituality to me means connection. Spirituality to me means feeling connected to the universe. That's really what it means. You know, there's all these different fears, right? But the biggest fear is what? We have fear of spiders, we got fear of heights and fear of crowds, There's a fear of peanut butter on the roof of your mouth. Have you ever heard of this? This is a real fear. Fear of peanut butter is a real fear. There's all these fears. If you Google phobias, you'll get all these bizarre phobias. I mean, there are things like fear of ladders, fear of ovens. There's like all kinds of fears. But there's only one real fear. And that is the fear of...
The unknown.
Damn. Oh, that's good. Where'd you hear that? Did you hear that from me?
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, good. That's the fear. The fear of the unknown. We fear what we don't know. What's the opposite of fear?
Courage.
Faith.
Love.
Close. Love. Courage is very close. Courage comes from the word heart, coronary, same root. It's very similar to love. Exactly. There's love and fear. That's from A Course in Miracles, if you ever heard of A Course. Anybody ever heard of A Course in Miracles? Have you read it? Have you done it? It's awesome stuff. There's two major fears. There's two major emotions. There's two major ways of being. There's two major ways of operating. There's two major ways of seeing the world. We see the world through fear. We see it through love. Love is attraction. It's pulling things together. Fear is separation. When we're separate, when we feel separate, we're in fear. Fear the unknown. We fear the unknown. We fear what we're separate from. To know something is, even in the Bible, it says to Adam knew Eve. Have you ever heard this in the Bible? When they want to talk about them making love, they say they knew each other. That's the actual Old English term of love, making love, of sex, is to know each other. So to know is to unify, to connect with each other, to connect. When we see the world in separation, we're seeing the world in fear. This manifestation, this dichotomy of fear and love, doesn't just show up psychologically or spiritually. It shows up spiritually when you feel disconnected. It shows up mentally and emotionally by being scared or being in love. And it shows up physically by the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. The two nervous systems. We have a nervous system of fear and we have a nervous system of love. The nervous system of love regulates digestion, it regulates creativity, it regulates fertility, it supports immunity, it builds muscle, it helps heal you. It's all the good stuff is parasympathetic. Now I'm being a little bit simplistic because you do need to have both sides of it. It's actually the sympathetic nervous system that gets your butt out of bed in the morning. So you do need to have some sympathetic innervation and activity. But generally speaking, the sympathetic nervous system raises your blood pressure. It slows down healing. It decreases creativity. It makes you angry and sensitive. It keeps your skin looking lousy. It suppresses your immune system. It makes you more likely to get diseases like cancer. All the crappy stuff. I mean, I'm not picking on you, but I don't know if you went through the horrible menopause a lot of women go through, right? Did you have any of that?
A little bit, but not horrible.
Okay, well the symptoms of menopause are like the classic symptoms of sympathetic overdrive. Hot flashes, insomnia, depression, mood changes, loss of libido, crappy skin, constipation, weight gain. These are all the things that are regulated by the parasympathetic nervous system. The point I'm trying to make here is that when we talk about spirituality is just one level or one dimension of the same phenomena that's occurring mentally, emotionally, and physically. And so if you want to be healthy and you want to be strong, you've got to work on all the levels. You know what I'm saying? You've got to work on all the levels because they're all fractals of each other. They're all reflections of each other. You can't work on one. You can't expect to get benefits from working on one without working on all of them. And so when I say spirituality, I mean feeling safe. The parasympathetic nervous system is your safety nervous system. When Jesus says in Christianity tells you you have to be saved, they mean you have to be safe. You have to be parasympathetic. You have to feel connected. And interestingly, not that I don't want to go all theological here, but it's kind of interesting. In Latin, sin, S-I-N, sin, means separation. It means separate. It means without. It means disconnected. That's when you're born into sin, original sin. Think about it. You're in the womb. Everything, you're one. You got everything. You got fluid, and you got oxygen, and you got glucose, and you got oxytocin, and life is good in the womb. And then all of a sudden you come out, it's like, whoa, where'd my stuff go? Can you imagine what this must have, no, seriously, I mean, it's funny in a way when you think about it, but the fundamental angst that baby has when he comes out and he sees he's separate, he's disconnected, That's called original sin. That's what original sin is, original separation. So when you talk about spirituality, you're talking about being connected, or being whole, or healthy, or holy. It's the same place, same roots. To be whole is to be healthy, is to be holy. It comes from all from the same place. And so what we're talking about here is learning to have all our parts working together coherently, and learning how to be an integrated whole. And that's really what this is about. And this is why the medical model is so insidious. Because it somehow med means middle. It became a middleman. It stuck itself between us and our wholeness, between us and our holiness, by being a middleman. So that says it right there in medicine. In the old days, they would say to you, Riva, don't worry about anything. Just give us your house. You've heard me say this probably, right? And we'll talk to God for you. We'll get you, we're plugged in. You go about your life. We want your house. And you just go about your merry way. We'll take care of you. So that's silly, right? Those are priests. That's what the priests did. That's what right? Right? So how silly. That's so stupid. Those medieval people, those dark ages people, they believe that silliness. What do? It's like the doctor. Don't worry, eat whatever you want. Burger King, no problem. Coke, no problem. We have a drug here. And that gallbladder, you don't need that silly little thing. We'll just take it out. And knees, no problem. We got prosthetics. Blood pressure, whatever. We got a little balloon. Stick it in there, no problem. We'll just take your house. We'll just take 20% or 30% of your income. It's the same idea. But what it is we're not whole. We're not leveraging our holiness, our integrated nature. The reason why supplementation is so important is because it's built in. There's no drugs in here, you guys. In this signaling molecule, ain't no drugs. No prescription drugs are in the signaling system. In fact, the only thing drugs can do, those sneaky little devils, is they can disguise themselves. They have molecular disguises that they wear. And they go, oh, I'm a signaling molecule. They get in there and they go, ha ha, I tricked you. And they rip off their mask and they they turn off a system. How sneaky is that? That's really offensive. Or they'll have a receptor. These are called receptors. And by the way, these receptors are how the signaling molecules are all read. The signaling molecules, or not all of them, but a lot of them sit in these little receptor sites. Drugs block those receptor sites. That's why they're called inhibitors or blockers, calcium channel blockers. Calcium is a major signaling molecule, by the way. When you think about calcium, you think about your bones. It's one of the most, it may be arguably the most important signaling molecule. It's hard to say. There's these channels that calcium is supposed to go into to trigger reactions. This is how the medical model works, how the medical model thinks. Oh, your heart is working so hard because you're under so much stress and because your blood is so sticky from all the crap you're eating. They don't tell you that part. They don't even know that part. They just say, oh, your heart is working so hard. Your blood pressure is so high. We're going to give you this nice drug that blocks the calcium channel. So now the heart doesn't have the calcium that it needs to do its business. And then they wonder why the number one toxic drug with side effects like lack of libido and feel low energy and suppressed immunity and skin diseases come from calcium channel blockers. You're blocking the calcium channel. You can't block a calcium channel in just one cell. You're blocking it everywhere. That's how all of these drugs work. They block channels. They sit in receptors. They disguise themselves. They act like signaling molecules, or they disguise themselves like signaling molecules, or they interfere with signaling molecules. That's how drugs work. Does that sound like a good idea to anybody? I say, how about we pound the signaling molecules in the system so the system can do what it needs to do and work on all levels. That's why, if anybody ever asks you or ever is wondering why they should do nutrition rather than prescription medication, this is why. The drugs are evil. They're working in disguise, molecular evil. I'm not saying that the people who dispense them I'm not going to go there politically. I'm just saying from a molecular standpoint, they're evil. They disguise, they block, they close off channels. Nutrients are signaling molecules. They tell the cell it's safe. Oh, that's another thing. These disguised signaling molecules, these blockers, do you think they tell the cell it's safe? No. They tell the cell it's not safe. Those are considered to be toxins to the cell, and the cell has to mobilize all of its detoxifying mechanisms to get rid of the stuff. The signaling molecules are like, my friends, welcome home. I know who you are. Let's go. I'm glad you're here. The signaling, the drugs are like, they're an evil invader. They're a parasitic invader from outer space to a cell. So a cell has to mobilize all of its mechanisms, and fortunately there's incredible mechanisms for cleaning it out inside a cell and inside and throughout the body. So, long story short, this is why nutritional supplementation is so important within a context of SMEP. If you want to be healthy, there's lots of ways to do it, but generally speaking, you want to tell the cell it's safe. You want to love the cell. You want to give the cell, you want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system so the cell can get some love and attention. Don't worry about it. Some love and attention. And that, when you put it that way, I mean, who doesn't want to give themselves a little bit of love? You know, I mean, we're not raised in a culture where we're ever taught to do that, to give ourselves a little bit of love, right? How often, think about the voice in your head, right? How often does the voice say, Daniel, you're so beautiful. I love you, Daniel. Does it say that? Mine doesn't. Mine doesn't ever say that. Ben, you're so beautiful. Oh, we love you, Ben. No, it never says that. So you're lucky. But a lot of people don't say that. And what's that? You trained yourself. Yeah, you trained yourself. That's good. That's exactly what you have to do. It's not conditioning. It's deconditioning, right? Because when you're a baby, you don't have that issue. It's deconditioning, right? Yes, it's unhypnosis. So you've unhypnotized yourself, right? So but the point is that, you know, giving ourselves love mentally with your voice is extremely important, but giving yourself love with nutrition is important. Giving yourselves love with nutrition is important. You know, the stuff that we're eating that seems like it's good because it activates our taste buds, because the people that make our food these days, they know just what are you doing with that thing? They know the chemicals that they need to put on your taste buds to make your taste buds want to go, yippee, I want more of that stuff. Do you know how much, and probably you're accepted here, I don't know, but most of us, our lives are ruled by a space this big on the tip of your tongue. This little postage size, half a postage size stamp. We will kill to activate that postage size stamp. You know what I'm saying? Think about all the things that we do with food is all because of that little square area, that little taste area. And they know, food manufacturers know good and well how to activate that with little molecules, with little drugs that sit on the receptor site and don't let go and grab it until you cannot help but eat another potato chip or eat another whatever. If you've ever had that experience of flavor in your mouth where you just can't stop eating because of that flavor, that's exactly what that is. So anyway, leveraging all of this is key. Using high-powered nutritional supplements, high-density nutritional supplements is key. And then leveraging, taking advantage of all the levels of health, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, telling the body it's safe on all of the levels. And that's really as simple as health is. It's not a medical issue, it's a lifestyle issue. It's a way of looking at the world issue. So for your dad, what I would tell your dad, or anybody who has cancer, I always say, just get out there and do stuff. You know, if you're absolutely weak and can't do anything, do a little bit. Walk up the stairs, walk up a couple stairs. Engage your mind. Use supplements. Don't eat. Calorie restriction is one of the most powerful tools we have. And it's funny because sometimes people say how expensive a nutritional supplement program is. I always say, I got a nutritional strategy for you that you'll make money. Stop eating. Calorie restriction. You don't need a lot. Your stomach is this big, you guys. That's all it takes to fill yourself up. Any more than that, the stomach stretches. So, that alone is a powerful strategy. Ketogenic diet is a really powerful strategy. You guys know what everybody knows what the ketogenic diet is. What is the ketogenic diet?
High fat, medium protein.
High fat, medium protein, no sugar.
Restrict your calorie diet.
There you go, Dr. Mitchell, rock on. That's the key right there, is low calorie, 1,200 calories a day. Yeah, get Taylor in there. That's the part that's really hard. 1,200 calories a day is not much, especially if 80% of it's coming from fat. If 80% of your calories are coming from fat, that's a couple spoons, right? And then that gives you like maybe a piece of bread or like half an apple. Ketogenic diet is not an easy diet to do. And that's the reason why a lot of people don't get benefits from the ketogenic diet. Now, if you're working out, you can get more calories. If you're exercising a lot, you can get more calories. If you're younger, you can get in more calories. You're recovering from something. But generally speaking, the ketogenic diet works because it revs up the system. It makes the system work. It makes the system extract energy in a very high, high yield form. The energy that it extracts from fat is very high yield, but it takes a lot of work to get that high yield. And that's why most of us are sugar burners. And that's why when most of us are hungry, we're going to go for the sugar and not for the fat. And by sugar, I mean the bread and the fruit juice and, artificial sugars, the keto bars. And, there's a lot of foods we go for because sugar is a much easier way for the body to derive energy. But if you say, no, you just don't put it in, and the only thing that's there is fat, then the body's forced to get it from fat, and that's a much more efficient way to get energy, especially for the heart, which works really hard, and for the brain, which is using up a lot of nutrition. So for the brain, for the heart, and also for weight loss and blood sugar, the ketogenic diet is the ultimate way to eat.
Animals do that naturally.
Do they go keto? Most animals, yeah, it's true probably, but they don't do it if they have sugar present.
Well, they don't know how to listen to the television.
Yeah, no, but if you give animals sugar, they'll go for sugar. Animals will go for sugar. Yeah, the animals, if you can definitely, because sugar's just easier. And there wasn't a lot of sugar from an evolutionary standpoint. There wasn't a lot of sugar around. We didn't have sugar. Sugar was rare. You got some honey and you had to go through the bees to get the honey. I mean, think about it. Where was there sugar, really? There wasn't a lot of sugar. There was maybe some sweet fruits or plants, but not a lot of sugar. So today, the body is trying to evolve or deal with a system it didn't evolve with, which is high amounts of sugar. So ketogenic diet, but have you heard now there's people saying, oh no, objecting to the ketogenic diet? And I don't know what they're thinking. Have you ever read any of that stuff? I don't know what they're thinking, but I just keep hearing about it. The ketogenic diet is bad for you and you don't want to go ketogenic, and some people say you want to be careful with you don't have to worry about your calories. You ever hear 5 times a day, eat 5 times a day?
Yes,
That is the dumbest advice. But that's what people, for a long time, it was like graze, don't stop eating the entire day. There's these nutrition myths that make it hard for a non-chemist to really figure out what's going on. Breakfast is the most important meal to skip. That one, I always say that when I want to freak some non-believer out. What do you mean? You have to have breakfast. You'll be tired if you don't have breakfast. How do you do it? No, because while you're fasting at night, you're burning ketones. You're ketogenic. You probably not. It takes a little while for the ketogenesis to really kick in, but you're heading in that direction. When you're fasting, that's a great thing. Skip breakfast or have high protein for breakfast. Have an egg. Have a piece of fish. Have something dense. Not something that takes a lot of work for the body to process. 10 o'clock, for most people at 10 o'clock, what happens? You need a nap, right? 10 a.m. You ever notice that? That's when a coffee break. That's when you get your coffee break, is 10 a.m. So I want to also, I hope that was okay. You guys, is that good? Okay, good. I want to talk a little bit about the business because you guys are already making money, so this is kind of, you could probably talk about it as much as I can. But I'll give you my perspective on it. It's like, and maybe you want to share this with your downline too, is the idea that if we believe in what we're doing, it's going to come out, and if you love people and want to help people and you believe in it, they can't help but want to be part of it. I mean, if it's not working, it's because you don't believe in it or you don't care enough to help people. If you believe in it, plus you care enough to help people, and I don't mean by pounding them over the head with it, because that's not helping them, but by being a helpful source, a resource. You guys, just by being in the scene for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, however long you've been doing it, I don't know how long you guys have been doing it, but for years, you know so much more than the average person. Do you realize how much more about health you know than the average person? I mean, just sharing with them what you know, being a resource to them is a powerful introduction. Think about it, if you're a car salesman and you want to sell cars, and you know a lot about cars, don't you think if you start telling people about cars and helping people with their cars, if they don't want to buy a car, when they want to buy a car, where are they going to go? They're going to go to you. Exactly. So just being a resource for people, just helping people be part of it. If you want to actually do the business, to me, you have to convince people that they can help others. You have to somehow, let them know that this can be part of their world, helping other people get better. And you say, well, what if that's not what they want? Well, guess what? If that's not what they want, they're probably not going to be a great downline for you. So what you want to do is you want to look for people who are interested in helping others. You want to look for people who are interested in making a difference through health. And you can do that. Some people are predisposed. They're already kind of like that. They're great. They're awesome if you can find those. But sometimes you might find somebody who just has high blood pressure and you put them on the Beyond Tangy Tangerine and their blood pressure drops. That's a great person. Or they lose 20 pounds or 30 pounds or 40 pounds. That's an amazing person. That's what you're looking for, is you're looking for people who have that same kind of, just like we all have in this room. You know, there's a guy, I read a book once written by this kind of spiritual guy, and he talked about people who are white blood cells and red blood cells. He said the white, and he wasn't 100% biochemically correct, I don't think, but his point was that some people are white blood cells, they want to clean up infection. They want to help people. There's white blood cells in the world. And there's red blood cells that are not like that. And I'm not sure how he described the red. I don't remember what he said about red blood cells. But the point being, there's some of us that are just here to help. We want to help. We get off on helping. I mean, that might sound weird. It doesn't sound weird to us. It might sound weird to some people. And Youngevity is filled with people like that. From Dr. Wallach on downward. It's filled with people who want to help, who want to make a difference, who want to change lives. So if you find somebody like that, then you say, this is an opportunity for you to do that. This is an opportunity for you to take information that is fundamental, powerful information, really no-brainer information if it's presented well. If it's presented correct, nobody can say, oh, I don't want that. And that's the kind of product this is. If you present it well, you can say, oh, I don't want to feel better. I don't want my blood pressure to drop. Who's going to say that? If you present it well, if you present it correctly, and then you let them know if this is the kind of thing that they want to do, this is an opportunity, a platform. And that's really what Youngevity is, you guys, especially for you. It's a platform, both you guys, because you're young and you want a platform, and you as well. And I can't speak for you guys, I don't know you guys as well, but I can know you guys and you. This is a platform.
Absolutely.
Right? And so how do you leverage a platform? A platform is just an opportunity. Now you got to leverage it. Now you got to get on the platform. Okay? Now how do you do that? You get a specialty. You develop something that sets you apart. You understand? Whatever your specialty, you got one?
It's your heart.
No, I mean, you got to help. That's heart's great. You need that. That's a prerequisite. But once you have that prerequisite, you need to have a specialty. People need to see you as being valuable for them. And you know what? The state of the art is, or the state of the society is it will take you 2 days to be an expert. World expert in a week. Read 3 books, and you will be a world expert. And you don't even have to do it that way. You can just get interested in it. Your dad had Alzheimer's disease. I'm interested in Alzheimer's. My mom has diabetes. I'm interested in diabetes. Your dad has cancer. I'm interested in cancer. When interested, whatever you do, whatever interests you, wherever your natural predilection is, wherever your natural flow is, whatever turns you on, you develop a specialty in that. You start reading up on it, and then you go to Kinko's or Ken's Reproduction or whatever, and you print up a little sign: free Alzheimer talk, free cancer talk. Learn how to beat cancer with nutrition. And you say, I can't do that. I'm not an expert. Yes, you are. You're an expert. You study for a week on it. You're an expert. You can now change somebody's freaking life. You can change somebody's life next week at Vitamin Cottage. That's how powerful this is. And that's how powerful the platform is. And it's not like Youngevity is the only company in the world that's doing this, but Youngevity's got great products and a great message, and it's filled with white blood cells, and it's a great opportunity. I personally think that it's silly for anybody who's a white blood cell and who's interested in nutrition not to take advantage of this. This gives you an immediate platform for literally thousands of people. You, Dan, you get on Facebook Live tomorrow on the Youngevity site and say, I'm going to do a talk on Alzheimer's disease or whatever it is you want to talk about. You'll immediately have 200 people. Within 2 months, you'll have 2,000 people. Right? This is amazing. And so if you go to somebody who doesn't care about that, who's not interested in that, you might have a harder time. But maybe that's not where you should be. I'm not saying don't go wherever you can go, but maybe put your intention on people who are white blood cells, who want to talk, who want to help, who want to do something, who want to make a difference. Develop a team like that. Develop an army like that. Is that feeling it?
Yeah.
Yeah? And that's what's possible, and that's what Youngevity allows you to do. And so to me, I've been doing it since 1998. I've been doing Youngevity. So you probably weren't even born. No, I'm just kidding. You were like a kid though. You were 4, right? Exactly. Time goes by quickly, But when I first heard it, that's exactly what I thought, because I was like you, I was 38, and I was like you, and I was like, I had already been doing it. I had already been doing talks, but then I met Dr. Wallach, and he gave me the opportunity to do it. And back then the company was really small, so it was easier, but you can still do it. Now it's even bigger. That's even better. It's even bigger. Because like I said, you could get on the Youngevity page, find a topic that you're interested in, and hopefully other people are interested in. I do skin, so I'm lucky, because everybody's interested in skin. Everybody wants to have good skin. Do skin. Do whatever. Find something that turns you on, And that's how simple it is to make money with Youngevity. Because once you have that, once you've presented yourself as an expert, people are going to want to be in your team. They're going to want to sign up under you. You're going to have people calling you to join. And that's the situation. That's the best sales situation there is when people are calling you and saying, how can I do it? And not the other way around. And in order to do that, you have to do the number one thing anybody needs to do to have a good life, to have an effective life, to have a successful life, to have a happy life, to have a meaningful life. The number one thing you have to do is you have to, do you want to know?
Yeah.
Bring value. You have to bring value. You have to bring something to the table. When you have kids, the one thing you want to teach your kids, bring value. Bring value to the society. Bring value to the culture. If you're bringing value, you're never going to need anything. Right? I mean, think about it logically. If you're bringing value, if you're in need of something, guess what? You haven't brought value. If you're in need for something, you have not brought value to the table. Because when you bring value, it's value. That's the definition of value. Value means that you get something back for it. It's worth something. So you got to look to bring value, and that's why being an expert becomes so important. I mean, wouldn't you want if somebody came, said, I could tell you everything there is to know about cancer, and what would your father say? And you believed them, you'd be there in a second, right? What we're talking about here is so devalued out there that it's very easy to bring value. The culture doesn't really value, although it's getting better, it's getting a lot better in the last 20 years, 30 years, it's getting a lot better because kids are not buying the bullshit anymore. 30 years ago, it would have been the devaluing was a lot more significant. Now we're starting to wake up a little bit. Now we're starting to see that a lot of this stuff does bring value. So it's not quite as difficult. I remember when you were a health nut. Do you remember that? You were a health nut. They don't say that anymore, health nut. They used to make fun of you really? I remember I had a friend whose dad ate yeast every morning. I was like, that is the dumbest, what the hell is he thinking, eating yeast every morning? Of course, yeast is one of the most powerful foods you could ever eat. All right, so that is my little talk, you guys. Do you have specific questions? Anything I can help you with?
I've got loads of questions.
Let me hear some questions. I want you to see how simple it is, how easy it is to turn health around.
When you want to go see a doctor,
If you're sick, figure out how to do it yourself. If you can't, find a teacher. The word doctor means teacher. So instead of finding a doctor who is doctoring you like the pharmacomedical model doctoring, which is that pipeline that we were talking about earlier, the commodification of health, where health becomes a thing that we sell you or we bill you for, find a teacher who can teach you, a real doctor, a teacher who can teach you about what's happening in the system. Now, it may be that you teach yourself about what's happening. You may become your own teacher, and we should all be our own doctors, ideally. We should be our own teachers. So learn about the body. To me, it is the craziest thing in the world to have an outside force tell us what's happening inside our body. And when you have an allergy test, people say, "Oh, I had my." They're broken out. They got all kinds of rashes, and they got every single manifestation of an allergy you could possibly have. And they go, "Well, I was tested, and I don't have any allergies." It's like we trust the tests, we trust the outside forces, we trust the outside information more than we trust ourselves. So what I would say to you is, at first, doctor yourself or find a teacher. And when I say teacher, I mean a body teacher, a chemistry teacher, a biochemistry teacher, somebody who understands the pathways. Depending on what your illness is, maybe go to a yoga teacher if it's a physical, if it's a skeletal thing, or a role. Find it, learn about the body, learn about it. Don't separate yourself out from your body and trust it to somebody else. Not that doctors are bad people, but to trust somebody else to take care of you doesn't seem like it's giving you much credit. It's disempowering. It's taking the power away from you. Now, if it's something where you need surgery or something like where something's broken and you need to be mended mechanically, that's a whole different animal. Do you guys get that? When you have a broken bone, you're not going to get on the internet and learn how to, repair your broken leg. You're going to want it set, and you're going to want it cast, and you're going to want it done medically. And so there are times, and surgery is very important. And I tell the story a lot, and it's really, it's really instructive. When I was getting wheeled out, do you ever have knee surgery? Anybody ever have knee surgery? Okay, I don't wish it on anybody. It is brutal. It's the most, and this was in the 80s before they had a lot of technique, and I got this long scar along my leg. And I remember them wheeling me out of the emergency room, and I remember hearing this voice, just this voice, and it sounded like my voice. And it was going, morphine, give me morphine, just like that. And it was like I was disembodied, but my body was saying, give me the frickin' pain medicine right away. And that's the kind of thing that pain pills can do for you, and pain medication can do for you, and medical procedures can do for you, and the medical model can do for you. So we got to give credit where credit is due. But as far as taking care of your body, if you have a female problem, a reproductive problem, or if you have a skin problem, or if you have a digestive problem, or if you have an immune system problem, those are all things that I would be learning myself. You break your leg, get hit by a car, or something happens mechanically, trauma-wise, go see a surgeon or go see somebody who can help you that way. But understanding your body, that's what I would say is the most important thing to do.
So I know for women and men, like they go through this issue where you have like discoloration from
Skin?
From like hormonal discoloration.
Yes, dyschromia.
Yeah. So like how can you treat that? You said because
Easy. So dyschromias involve two major factors. So first of all, and dyschromia means messed up color. Dyschromia. So typically you're dealing with hormonal issues because hormones trigger the melanin response. The melanin is really, really amazing stuff. And the more melanin you have, the healthier your skin will be. And by the way, melanin is not just in your skin, it's in your body. You can get melanoma inside your body. Your brain, in fact, if there's an area of your brain that has really lots of melanin and it's responsible for movement, and if you get defects or that area starts to break down, you start to move weird. Like this, you know what they call that? What's that called when you go like this and you get old?
Shaky.
Shaky, right. It's all Parkinson's. Parkinson's disease, and Parkinson's disease is when the melanin in your brain deteriorates. The melanin in your brain, your neuromelanin, your brain melanin deteriorates. Deterioration of the neuromelanin causes movement disorders because melanin is highly electrical stuff. Melanin is used in computer chips in high tech. Did you know this? They're actually making computer chips out of melanin, or they're working on making computer chips out of melanin because melanin conducts electrical energy. So melanin in the skin is one of the ways the body controls one of the most important stressors that a human being can ever go under from an evolutionary standpoint, which is, well, you would know, but the sun. We grew up in Africa. So the sun represents a major stressor because it can fry you. So melanin is one of the, it's an adaptive mechanism, a survival mechanism. So it's tied into the survival response, to the sympathetic nervous system response. And the hormones that regulate the sympathetic nervous system are linked into the production of melanin, or the darkening of melanin. So the more stress you're under, the more you're going to pigment. So hyperpigmentation, what's called, you guys might not know this, but hyperpigmentation, you obviously do, is a serious thing. So, it's a big skin problem for people. It doesn't sound like it's much, but millions, maybe billions of dollars are spent every year in procedures and products and medications to take care of your hyperpigmentation, dark spots. You've all seen this, I'm sure. Just dark spots on people's face. Yeah, there you go. Now that might not be hyperpigmentation. No, that's not. That's lipofuscin. That's a little different.
that's toxic waste.
That's like a waste that's not being drained out. Waste is not being drained. So that's a different thing. When it's that's not hyperpigmentation. Everybody here is youngins. Nobody has real hyperpigmentation issues. I can't tell, but I don't want to pick on anybody's skin here. But hyperpigmentation is just blotchiness in the skin, basically, and it is a big problem. But you want to think about the stress response and specifically the hormones of stress: cortisol and estrogen, two major hormones of stress. So and you may know this, but women on the birth control pill, women who are on hormone replacement therapy, women who are going through menopause, whenever there's a change in estrogen levels, you'll hyperpigment, and whenever you're under stress, you'll hyperpigment. So the most important strategies are estrogen clearance strategies. Estrogen clearance is probably, if it's not the most, it's certainly one of the most important health strategies a woman can ever do. because the most miserable health challenges that human beings face affect women way more than men. Women are high risk for almost all the miserable ones. There's a few that men have, but autoimmune diseases and Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease and depression and hypothyroidism, these are all female health issues, and they're tied into estrogen. So helping your body get rid of estrogen is really important. If you're hyperpigmenting, I would consider that to be a signal that you want to start working on estrogen clearance or estrogen balancing. The most important thing is regular bowel movements. But it's a big circle because it's kind of troubling because, check this out. So when your estrogen is high,
Even if you don't take like birth control, right?
yeah, if you just plastic is estrogenic, soy is estrogenic, beans are estrogenic. Some women, like you, are just high estrogen producers. You're a high estrogen producer too. So, genetics can play a role. So you just gotta, it doesn't have to be the birth control pill. Okay? Estrogen is cleared out of the digestive system. That's how it's supposed to, and the liver is involved here too. But the problem is when you have high estrogen, that tends to suppress digestion. So the estrogen keeps building up. So what you have to do is you got to work together with the digestive system and the estrogen, because estrogen shuts down the digestive system, and then that shuts down estrogen clearance, which shuts down the digestive system, which shuts down. You get this downward spiral. Not a very good circle.
Is there anything that balances estrogen?
Yeah.
What's that?
Is there anything that...
Yes, there is. There's a couple things you can do. First of all, regular bowel movements is important, and that means fiber and magnesium, and staying away from problem foods and probiotics. The nightly essence. Are you cold? Yeah. The nightly essence is also important. Are you cold too?
No, she just made me cold. Look at her.
Yes. So working on intestinal health is what I'm saying. Also, there's nutrients you can take for the liver, because estrogen is cleared in the liver. Broccoli, and also cruciferous vegetables in general, cauliflower, cabbage, all the cruciferous, Brussels sprouts. There's actually a compound in broccoli, I don't know if you know this, but there was a doctor in Boulder who extracted a compound out of broccoli, and he didn't extract it, but he kind of synthesized it, and he's selling it now as, in health food stores. It's called DIM. Have you ever heard of this? So DIM helps balance out estrogen, calcium D-glucarate. There's various supplements. Vitamin C helps, not balance, but detoxify. For balancing progesterone, helps balance out estrogen, so progesterone cream. So if you're dealing with menstrual problems, endometriosis, fibromyalgia, any female reproductive problems, cysts, lousy periods, fibroids, hyperpigmentation, this is kind of a syndrome. And these tend to happen, when they happen, people usually have more than one. They usually have 2 or 3 of these things. Those are all classic signs of the problem clearing out estrogen. Or you maybe out of balance estrogen. Essential fatty acids, your ultimate EFAs,
I take those.
those are like natural estrogens. So if you have any estrogenic health issues, or if you're thinking about going on hormone replacement therapy, use essential fatty acids. That's what I would do. So then there's topical things you could do. So lowering cortisol. The most important ways to lower cortisol are by keeping your blood sugar stable and by relaxing. And by relaxing, I don't just mean psychologically relaxing, but allowing the body to relax. Not putting toxicity into the body, food allergens into the body, just calming everything down. And then there's nutrients you could take for cortisol and for estrogen: vitamin A, vitamin E, essential fatty acids, magnesium, selenium, sulfur. All of these are really good nutrients for helping the body process estrogen. And then topically, retinol is the bomb for hyperpigmentation. It is the shit.
Even if that specific hyperpigmentation is from hormone.
It'll come back. Your hyperpigmentation will come back. But yes, it will still get rid of it. Once you see hyperpigmentation, it's over. It's done. So what happens is it'll slough off eventually.
Yeah.
So improving its sloughing rate is also good. Alpha hydroxy acid?
Yeah, I use it.
Yeah, alpha hydroxy acids or energizing exfoliators.
I just bought that.
You just bought that? Okay. I'm liking you there, Richard. That's good. That's why my business has spiked there. Thank you. Okay, so that's hyperpigmentation, is exfoliative techniques, retinol, and then estrogen and cortisol. Okay, what else? Anything else?
So I actually started cutting out carbs because I was having really bad digestion problems with carbs.
All carbs?
Well, I eat vegetables.
Okay. So
but
when you
yeah,
say you had
all-
digestive problems, was it like grains or legumes?
Yeah,
or?
grains and also dairy too.
How did you feel when you cut out the dairy grains?
Like I lost like so much weight.
You did?
In like 2 weeks.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? Now come on, don't you want everybody to know that?
Yeah.
It's like you can't. You want to like scream it from the top of the roof. That's what I'm saying. Once you notice these things in yourself, you become like an evangelist.
And I started feeling better, like, because I would always feel bloated when I eat like carbs or
Right.
any form of dairy. So I just want to know like what other ways can we do to like really help our digestive system? Because I didn't even think I would have. I'm like 26. I didn't think that would be an issue for me.
I see. You thought you were invulnerable and young. You could do anything.
But yeah.
It's usually there's this thing. Have you heard me talk about hitting the wall?
Yeah, 28. he
It's
said.
usually 28.
Yeah.
You guys ever hear me say or talk about hitting the wall? Like up until you're around. How old are you, Dan?
26.
You're 26. All right, good. How old are you, Dan?
25.
And you?
25.
You're all like about the same age. Do you guys all know each other?
Yeah.
All right, you're a team. Good, I like that. These are the youngins. So here's the thing. When you're young, you're like all cocky. You smoke cigarettes and drink and go out and then play football the next day or go out and, go to work or whatever you're doing, go to school and then go out and party again and play ball again the next day and all that stuff. And then right around 27 or 28, something happens. I call it hitting the wall. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, that hurts. Or, oh, I don't feel so good. I don't think I want to go out again tonight. I just went out yesterday. Or I went out, and it just keeps going that way. But when it hits, it's like you go from this invulnerable state, right? You go from the state where you could do anything to where you hit the wall. And then you become an adult. Welcome to adulthood.
Then you get 40.
Yeah, 40 or 60, or it just doesn't get any better. It keeps getting worse. So, yes. All right.
What are your thoughts on optic neuritis?
Now that's a great question. Okay, so optic neuritis. So you're going to work with me on this because Rivi asked a really cool question. She said, like I'm 26 and I don't want to go to doctors. What do I do if I get sick? And I said, learn, teach, go to a teacher or become your own teacher. So now we're going to let you become your own teacher. Now, do you have something personal about optic? Do you have a patient, a friend, a family member?
I got my buddy who we just introduced him to this business and everything we just do with this, but he's starting to go blind in his eyes.
Got it. And they called it optic neuritis.
Yes.
Okay. And then how old is he?
He's 49, yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's the deal. So we're gonna walk you through the whole thing. First of all, you guys have heard me say this, but I get a kick out of it, so I'm gonna say it again because I think it's funny. It's like how we diagnose is the silliest thing. It's like you find out whatever seems to be wrong with you and you put it in Latin and you call it a disease. So optic neuritis is not a disease, it's a description. What we think, when we name a disease, when we get diagnosed, and I'm not allowed to diagnose now. You know why I'm not allowed to diagnose? Because when you diagnose something, you give it a name. That's what you do when you diagnose. You give something a name. When you give something a name, you put a language on it. You put words on it. You turn whatever's happening in your body into language. Language is a spell. It's magic. Magic's controlled. The magic spell. I'm not allowed to do that. I'm not allowed to do magic. I don't have a license to do magic. Only the doctor has a license to do magic to name your disease.
You don't have a magic decoder ring?
What's that? I'm going to get one. I'm thinking about magic decoder ring. I used to have one for my Lucky Charms box, and I used that when I was a kid. I think I still have that. Anyway, so fibromyalgia is the classic one. It's like you have pain all over.
It's terrible.
It's all, oh my God. Oh my God. Fibromyalgia, imagine the worst workout soreness you've ever had, multiply it by 10 and it never goes away and it's head to toe.
Entire body.
Yeah, head to toe. Can you imagine this? Can you imagine how you had a sore, you ever do too many curls or whatever and your biceps are sore and then it goes away after a couple days. Imagine that same bicep soreness multiplied by 10, it's head to toe.
And the stress of having that makes it worse.
And then the stress of having it has worse. Sounds like you know about fibromyalgia. Yeah, it's pretty awful. It's a pretty awful condition. So picture the situation. You go to the doctor. You go, oh, my muscles hurt. They're really sore. And you go, they do a touch test. They poke you. And you go, oh, that hurts. Oh, that hurts. And the doctor goes, okay, apparently you have fibromyalgia. What does that mean? It means my muscle fibers hurt. It's like you go to the doctor and say, my muscle fibers hurt. And he goes, oh, you have fibromyalgia. And we think we have fibromyalgia. We think we have this disease called fibromyalgia. And we wear a little hat for the Fibromyalgia Association and race for the cure of fibromyalgia and Fibromyalgia Awareness Week. And it becomes this thing. It becomes branded as a thing. And that's what diagnoses are. They're a brand that is supposed to describe a set of phenomena. But you can't heal or get better by treating a brand. That's why medicine doesn't work. It tries to treat the name. And so you go to a book and you look at fibromyalgia and you see the treatment. And you have no idea what's going on in the body because you don't need to, because you're not treating what's going on in the body. You're treating the name. And that's why people get drugs, and they have standard protocols, and they have specific ways, pharmaceutical remedies they're supposed to use in order to treat the name. But you have to know what's going on in the body in order to really treat what's going on in the body. And the good news is it's all the same stuff. The body only breaks down in a generic way. Now, there's a key word, a key suffix, a key part of the word, and whenever you have Latin, or any words really, you want to break it up into pieces. So biochemists and scientists have a language that they speak where they take words and they stick them together. They take parts of words and stick them together. So nur always means what? Nur. Nur. N-E-U-R means neuron, nervous system. Whenever you hear neuroma is a cancer of the nervous system. Neuritis is inflammation of the nervous system. Neuropathy is a pathology of the nervous system. Nur means nervous system. So, nervous system, nerve cells. Itis, what does itis mean? Inflammation. So he has an inflamed optic nerve. There's an inflammation in the optic nerve. Optic neuritis is no longer this Latin, what the heck do I do with it now? It's an inflammation of the optic nerve. Now, when you have inflammation of the optic nerve, what's the most important part of those two words? What's the most important word if you want to take care of it? Is it the optic or is it the neuritis? It's the neuritis. It's the inflammation. You don't know whether it's in the optic. It could be in the big toe. And he'd have peripheral neuropathy. It could be anywhere. He'd have a cancer and he'd have a neuroma. It doesn't matter. It's a neuritis. So then you break that apart further. See what we're doing here? I'm doctoring you. I'm teaching you. So now you can go. I'm not curing anybody. I'm telling you what to do. So neuritis is an inflamed nerve, right? It's an inflamed nerve. What's the most important part of that? Those two phrases. Is it the nerve or is it the inflame? What does it matter? It's let me rephrase this. There's nouns and there's verbs. When something's going wrong in your body, is it a noun or is it a verb? It's a verb. Is a diagnosis a noun or a verb?
Noun.
Problem. We got a problem. You see what I'm saying? The verb is where the action is, not the noun. They want a nominal. That's called nominalization, by the way, when you make something that's a verb into a noun. Now it's a thing. Now I have it. Boom, it's here. What do I do with it? Right? It's not a noun, it's a verb. The verb is the itis. It's an inflammation. There's an inflammation is not a noun either. Inflammation is an inflammatory process. There's an inflammatory process. He has arthritis of the optic nerve. Now, of course, it's worse. It's his eyes. It's not his joint, but it's the same thing. He has an inflammatory process going on in a place where it shouldn't be going on. The eye.
Irritation.
You're on the right track. It's a result of irritation.
It's a response.
It's a response. It's a response. Give her a little shout out there. Wow. Dr. Mitchell. What kind of response is it, though?
Inflammatory response.
No, that's clear, but but what kind of response is inflammation? It's a reaction, that's clear, but what kind of reaction, what kind of response?
Stress.
What?
Stress.
Close. Defensive. It's protection. It's your body protecting itself. It's a defensive response. It's a defensive reaction. A reaction is a reaction. That means it's an action that's happening again. If you have a reaction you want to stop, what do? You find out what the action is that's causing the reaction. You get this? Neuritis is a reaction. If you hear the word itis, you're having a reaction. And the question, it's a defensive reaction, so something has gotten into the system and the system's protecting itself. Get back to our signaling molecules. When we say something has gotten into the body, that's kind of a it's a poor description of what's really occurring. When we say something has gotten into the body, what we really mean it's gotten into the blood. The body is really just a protective device for the blood. The blood is what it's all about. The life of the flesh is in the blood, it says in the Bible, right? This is where the life is. When we have something getting into the body, that means something has gotten into the blood. When we have an immune response, inflammation is a protective response, it's an immune response. It's the way the immune system is reacting, the defensive system is reacting. What we mean is an invader has gotten into the blood. Now in the eyes, there's lots of blood, there's lots of perfusion in the blood, because the eyes are very active, obviously, so they've got to have a lot of nutrients and a lot of oxygen. So the eyes are heavily perfused. So if you have a invader into the blood, and when I say invader into the blood, that's one of the things that can happen, but you could also have a deficiency in the anti-invader system. Your blood has an anti-invader, so it's expecting invaders. But when you have a combination of invasion plus a decrease in anti-invasion in defense system, in protective mechanisms, you'll tend to get an inflammatory response. So inflammatory response is initiated by one, invaders, and by two, a lack of anti-invaders, a lack of weaponry, a poor army, a poor defense system. So right away, just in the last 5 minutes, you have so much more power over this condition than when it was optical neuritis. Follow what I'm saying? By breaking down, see what's happening. So your job number one is to figure out what's getting into the blood. And this is true about all chronic degenerative diseases because this mechanism is true. This is not just the eyes. This is every single part of the body, this mechanism of invasion plus a lack of anti-invasion plus blood toxicity. That's what I say. That's why I was saying on the bright side. All disease is cell disease, and all cell disease is dirty blood. That's it in a nutshell. So, but I just gave you the mechanism, but if you don't want to know the mechanism, just go by that, what I just told you. All disease is cell disease, including optical neuritis, and all cell disease is dirty blood, including optical neuritis. Clean the blood and keep it protected. So for your friend, first of all, he's 40. You said he's 40?
49.
49, okay. It's still young.
Yeah.
This is something that happens as you get older. So this is a guy I can tell you, Psychic Ben, not supplementing, eating like crap. Okay? Don't even go there. I know what it is. I'm Psychic Ben. You know? I'm not really Psychic Ben. People think it because I say this, but it's obvious once you understand this mechanism. He's not eating right. Okay? He doesn't know what to do. And now I'm not saying you can still have optical neuritis if you're supplementing because that doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's not like necessarily has to be eating at McDonald's every day. He could just be thinking he's eating whole grains. He's a vegetarian.
Yeah,
You know?
he just recently told me that he checked himself and I guess his body was in ketosis or something. That's what he said. I don't know how he...
Carnivore, ketogenic diet.
Okay, well, the point I'm making is we don't necessarily know the mechanism, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And one of the things that I hear a lot, shockingly a lot, is where people will tell me, oh, my belly really hurts, but I don't have any digestive problems. Or, oh, I got psoriasis, but I eat really well. But I only eat the good foods. I don't eat. It doesn't matter, dude. If you've got psoriasis, something's up. You know what I'm saying? Oh, but I only eat the good foods. I'm gluten-free. How can I have psoriasis? I'm gluten-free. It doesn't matter. If you have a condition, it's not to make you bad or to make you wrong or to judge you. It's just to show you this is a place where you can work. This is an opportunity. If you understand this mechanism, now if you say, oh, Ben, that's the most ridiculous thing I ever heard. That's the stupidest mechanism, which nobody can ever say, because it's just logic. But then I can understand why somebody would say, okay, well, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to pay attention to you. But if you believe this mechanism, what I just told you, and there's no way to not believe it, because it's exactly what's happening, you have a solution to your optical neuritis right here. Unless you say, it's genetic. It's just in my genes. My dad had optical neuritis, so I'm going to have optical neuritis. It's all of those crazy ideas. It's a shame because this gives you power over the condition. And it's not because I say so as an assertion, it's because this is the mechanism, the logical mechanism. Okay. So having control his diet, because that's the main place for blood toxicity, unless he's injecting through the skin, it's interesting because a lot of these problems happen to drug addicts, but people who inject things through the skin, because that's another way you can get toxemia. But food is for most people, it's toxemia, especially considering how we eat, and then also lack of nutrients, and remember, SMEP, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, all of that. And, optical neuritis is not something that has to happen. It's an inflammatory process. Verbs don't have to happen. Nouns do. But verbs can be, I'm always, when I go on George Norrie on Coast to Coast, he said, don't say cure. You can't say that cure word. Don't ever say cure. We gotta be really careful of that. So I'm like, dude, I don't need to say cure. I say reverse. Cure is magic. Reverse is science. If something's going this way, it could go that way. If the body can turn on a dime, but we have to turn on a dime. You know when optical neuritis can go away? Immediately. Immediately. Now, I should say start to go away. Start. It can start tomorrow. Your dad can start to get better tomorrow or today, in a moment, because it's all a process. So as long as the process is happening, you could stop the process, you could turn the process around. It takes a second. Even if you're smoking cigarettes, between cigarettes, your lungs are healing. Right? Between the cigarette, your lungs are healing. No? I didn't catch what you said?
I'm saying his last scanning, that's what they told him, that it slowed down and they got smaller.
Exactly. You know what? Sometimes it takes some disaster for us to take the bull by the horns and do something. But there you go. That's exactly it. There's a really cool article in the New York Times about 10 years ago, and you can Google it. Cancers come and go. Cancers disappear. I forgot what it is. Just Google New York Times, cancers disappearing. And it's a whole article that talks about how doctors can't figure out why cancers just disappear. They can't figure it out because, of course, everybody knows you have cancer. You have cancer. You have it. It's a noun. You don't have cancer. You're cancering. He doesn't have optical neuritis. He has optical neuritis. He's optical neuritis-ing. Just put an ing at the end of everything. Okay, diabetes-ing. Right? I'm diabetes-ing. Okay, then don't diabetes-ing. Between meals, you don't have diabetes. When your blood sugar is not messed up, you don't have diabetes anymore. How dare they tell you you have diabetes? No. You have you're diabetes-ing after a meal. Your blood sugar is messed up after you eat, but in between, it's not. Is that right? Am I missing something? Yes, sir.
Question. So I know I've heard you talk about activating the parasympathetic nervous system and getting like a hot tub. Like that should be a thing that every person has.
No, I said if I'm running for president, then everybody gets a hot tub in their backyard. That's my kind of health insurance. Is hot tub for everybody. The fastest way to activate the parasympathetic nervous system is immerse yourself in warm water. It happens almost right away. Yes.
With that being said, on the flip side of that, I've been studying getting into a man named Wim Hof.
Yeah.
Who does?
He's great. He does. No. He does both. He does both, and both is even better than a hot tub.
Okay.
Both is cold plunge. And by the way, a lot of what Wim Hof does is it gives you energy. His thing is giving you energy. My thing is relaxing you, calming down. So for energy, a cold shower will freaking give you energy. You get out of a cold shower, you'll be ready to go because it's activating the stress response. So what you really want to do is go hot and cold. If you go hot and cold, you get a pump. You get both, and you get a pumping action. You open and close things. So when you're in cold, you vasoconstrict. When you're open, you vasodilate. So vasodilation and vasoconstriction, when they happen back and forth, is like a pumping action, especially for the lymph. It's a great way to, even standing in the shower and turning it hot and cold, you can do that. It's a great lymphatic exercise, I guess you would say, or a great mechanism for the lymph. Warm water is for activating the parasympathetic nervous system. Cold water will not activate your and you will know that. You'll look, the inner wisdom, yeah? I always talk about we have an inner wisdom. Stand over a cold, like the polar bear thing in the middle of winter and look over, your inner wisdom will be talking to you. Don't even think of doing that, And sometimes people do, because it activates the sympathetic nervous system so much you get a heart attack by doing it. And people do get heart attacks from that. So it's great strategy, and I love Wim Hof, and I love his stuff, and I do his breathing. I have done his breathing, I'll say. So he's great. But what I'm talking about is activating the parasympathetic nervous system so that you can lower your blood pressure, so you can boost your immune system, so you can activate your creativity, so you can feel better. Hot tubs have this connotation of being sexy because sexiness is associated with the parasympathetic nervous system. So everything you think about with a hot tub is about the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's the safety nervous system. So that's what I talk about with the hot water. But you know what? Anything you do that duplicates, the reason the hot water works is because it duplicates the last place you were safe. What's the last place where you were one with the world? The womb. Exactly. So the hot tub tells the body you're back in the womb. Immersion in hot water tells your body back in the womb. But if you don't want to do that, Say, I can't take a hot tub. You know what you could do? And you will do this, by the way. If you get into a bad enough predicament, you will guaranteed do this. You won't even have any control over it because of the inner wisdom will take over. So a hot tub will activate your parasympathetic nervous system, but if you really get into a bind and there's no hot tub, what you will find yourself doing is going into a fetal position. The fetal position, just somatically, by having your muscles in that curvature, in that position, that posture, tells the brain you're back in the womb. Last place you're safe. You don't believe me? You have a high blood pressure cuff? Get your high blood pressure cuff, take your blood pressure, then lay in a fetal position for a few minutes, and then take your blood pressure again. Or get in a hot tub or warm water and then take your blood pressure again. Guaranteed, drop like a stone. Just tell the body it's safe. You can do hypnosis and tell the body it's safe to do it. Point being, with blood pressure, the most toxic drugs are beta blockers and calcium channel blockers and blood pressure lowering drugs. And that's saying something. There may not be the number one, I think, case, there's a few other ones that are more toxic, but as a class, those are among the most toxic drugs because of that whole channeling thing I was telling you about. Doctor, do no harm, remember that? Do no harm? When was the last time a doctor wrote a prescription? Hot tub. 2 hours in a hot tub every night. Take 2 warm baths every night. When was the last time a doctor wrote a prescription for that? But if you vote for me for president, national health care will be a hot tub for everybody. Is that good? Carol, what do you think? Hot tub for everybody. That's my kind of health care, right?
So for me,
national massage insurance too, by the way.
I have like really intense pains during my period.
Yes.
Sometimes I can take 1 bottle of Advil. Yeah,
your estrogen's off. I told you that.
Yeah,
I'm
so
saying.
apart from
you got to start clearing out estrogen. You're very young, so you're not going to notice estrogenic health issues for a few more years, but that's a shot across the bow. Okay, that's the first step when you're young and you're having menstrual problems, pain, heaviness, cramping, PMS, anything. That is a warning sign. So that's the beginnings. So I would be taking, if I were you, I'd take estrogen very seriously with all the things I just told you about. Digestion, progesterone cream, neutralizing, helping your body detoxify estrogen. Progesterone is, in the body there's all these balancing things. There's parasympathetic and sympathetic, there's magnesium and there's calcium. It's like yin and yang. There's relaxation, there's stimulation, there's all of these different balances. Well, one of the balances in terms of hormones is between estrogen and progesterone. Estrogen is designed to make a baby. Estrogen goes up when you're, not to grow a baby, I'll say. Estrogen is the hormone of baby growth. That's its main role, is to grow a baby. But it also causes creates changes in fluid dynamics. Because when you're growing a baby, a lot of that is the way fluids are shunted back and forth, the way cells divide. It's a very active substance. So if progesterone, on the other hand, is a very relaxing substance. Progesterone doesn't help you grow a baby, it helps you conceive a baby. See, so there's 2 hormones that are here. Progestation, gestation is pregnancy. Progesterone is a progestation hormone. It helps you conceive a baby. It has a relaxing effect because when you're conceiving a baby, you can't be under duress. If you're under duress, you're not going to conceive a baby. In fact, infertility is a big problem. I don't know if you guys know that. And one of the big reasons why infertility is such a problem is because we're so stressed and because you may want to have a baby, but your body's like, hell no, we're not making you a baby, and they call that and they call that infertility. You're like, I remember I was in the pharmacy. One of the big things was fertility drugs I would have to dispense, and this couple comes in and they're like, we're having sex 3 times a day, 7 days a week, and we can't make a baby. I'm thinking, doesn't sound all that bad here, lady. I don't know what you're complaining about, but it is. I mean, to try to make a baby and you're like doing everything you could do to make a baby and you can't, you go to the doctor. These people are on fertility drugs. They get this, who's that? They get these fertility drugs. And anyway, this one couple came in and they were on fertility drugs, and then I didn't see them for 9 months. And then 9 months later, I'm looking down the aisle at Albertsons, and there's this freaking baby carriage with 6 babies. It was like, yes, it was in Lafayette. I don't know if you heard of it. They made the news. It was like a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that was a big thing? They had sextuplets, right? Well, I was given them fertility drugs to have the sextuplets.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't look all that happy either. They had 6 babies. 6. And they had 1 baby carriage with 6 babies in it. It was isn't that crazy? So anyway, infertility is a sign of excess duress. Hyperpigmentation is a sign of excess duress. Fibroid cysts, all of those. excess duress, hyperpigmentation, dyschromias, excess duress, and that's all regulated by estrogen. Progesterone calms everything down. So you can conceive a baby, but also it's important for muscle development. It's also important for healing. It's also important for bone strength. If you're over here, too much over here, relatively speaking, you're not going to have enough of this over here. Or if you're low over here, relatively speaking, you'll be too high here. So this has a balancing effect.
So how do you use the progesterone?
You can the best way is in cream.
So how do you do it?
Go to the drugstore.
Put it on your skin?
Yeah, you put it on your wrist or on your thigh, bottom of your foot, different places.
Essential fatty
Progesterone cream, you get that at the drugstore. Essential fatty acids are must.
Okay.
Must have. Magnesium, selenium is very anti-estrogenic. Cancers, a lot of cancers, by the way, are estrogen driven, especially female cancers. So selenium is very
And
important.
there's selenium in here, so.
You need more.
You need
Get the
more.
ultimate selenium.
So what?
The Beyond Tangy Tangerine is an awesome minimum wage. Would you want to work for the minimum wage? No, but you want to get at least the minimum wage, right? You don't want to work under the minimum wage. BTT is the minimum wage, okay? It gives you the basics, but it doesn't give you enough of everything. It gives you the minimum wage, which is, I mean, have you ever worked for less than minimum wage? You wouldn't want to work for less than minimum wage. It'd be awful. But at the same time, you don't want to work for minimum wage. So the BTT is for people who just want the minimum. And there are a lot of people who do that, who just want the minimum. That's fine. But if you really want to take care of yourself, you need selenium, you need magnesium, you need the whole
So what
healthy
products
start
would
pack.
you recommend?
What products?
And Youngevity. Like,
Ultimate selenium,
ultimate.
for sure. Ultimate EFAs, high doses ultimate EFAs. And then unfortunately, when it comes to individual nutrients, there's something you're gonna have to get from the health food store. And I know I'm probably gonna get all kinds of grief about that, because I always do, but you have to. Vitamin E, vitamin A it balances out estrogen. Slow deep breathing, anything you do to relax the body. Remember, you want to attack it on all levels. So that's important too. But elevated estrogen can be due to problems here or problems at the level of the digestive system too. If you're not having regular bowel movements or if your body's clogged up, that can also do it. Or if I don't think you'd have a liver issue, but you may have a digestive thing happening. Do you have a history that way?
No. I just started like maybe a year ago.
Pain with your period?
Oh, pain with my period. It's been like that for
Your whole life, yeah.
Yeah.
So any digestive things going on your whole life that you know about? Because
No.
usually they're connected. You like really sharp pain, like really
like really unbearable, like where I'm like
that's
curled up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you doing EFAs?
Yeah, I just started doing that.
Do a bunch of them, especially and more around your period, and magnesium also. All the things I told you for female health. You guys know what antioxidants about the whole story of antioxidants? I don't have time to go into it, but it's kind of cool how that whole thing works. Oxidation is rust. Antioxidants are rust protectors, basically.
Super anti.
Astaxanthin is the red that's in shrimp.
All right.
Nature has provided, let me put it this way, what is out in nature all the time and is subjected to the energy from the sun all day long and never gets skin cancer? Plants. And never gets wrinkles? Plants. What is it in plants that allows them to withstand the super high energy of ultraviolet radiation that's streaming out from the sun? Plants thrive in it. They don't burn. They don't, as long as they have the right nutrients, they don't suffer any ill health. They actually get stronger and better from all that radiation, because nature has provided them with transducing devices that will actually take that photonic energy and spin it around their chemical shape and deactivate it. Natural sunscreens. You know what we call those? Pigments. And they do double duty. Those pigments do double duty of attracting, when they get activated by the light, they attract insects. To an insect, when a pigment, a red, a blue, a green, all those beautiful colors that are in nature, when a pigment is irradiated by ultraviolet radiation, it like shimmers. It just has this amazing color appearance that only bees can see, or bugs can see, or various animals can see. So these pigments are protective devices and they're attractive devices for the insects, because the plants need insects to pollinate. So it has these pigments are amazingly powerful. When we eat those pigments, it provides our body with protective substances that deactivate stray energy. In the skin, these substances, these pigments, deactivate the sun. And one of the best ways to protect yourself from wrinkles, from hyperpigmentation, to keep your skin healthy and beautiful, is to eat lots of pigments. Astaxanthin is one of those pigments.
Well, it's not talked about that much.
No, in the body, there's sparks that are constantly being thrown off. Every time you have a chemical reaction, you got sparks being thrown off. Those sparks need to get mopped up. If they're not mopped up, you have all these stray sparks flying around. It's going to cause aging. It's going to cause destruction. It's going to cause wreak havoc to the extent you have sparks. Astaxanthin sucks up those sparks so that the energy, you don't have these stray sparks and the energy can flow more smoothly without having all of this disruption. That's what astaxanthin does from a molecular
What's the most
standpoint.
powerful antioxidant?
It's not, isolating astaxanthin and fucoidin and all of these, it doesn't work that way. Astaxanthin is very, very important, but when you start to say it's the most important and, the highest of this and the best of that, that's not how nature works. There's thousands of pigment colors. Astaxanthin is one of them. It happens to be easy to extract, so there's companies that make astaxanthin, and then there's nutritional companies downstream that buy the astaxanthin, and then there's research universities and laboratories that test the astaxanthin, and then there's marketing companies that tell you about the astaxanthin, and all of a sudden you hear about astaxanthin everywhere. But there's zillions of them. And that's why you want to make sure that you're eating the rainbow, eating all the colors wherever you can. And by the way, a lot of that astaxanthin that's in seafood, eating seafood is really an excellent way to get a lot of these pigments. But also, there are various xanthins in plums and in grapes and in tomatoes and in various colored vegetables that have reds. Wherever you see red, you're going to have a type astaxanthin-like compounds. Okay, so it's great stuff, though. I'm not dissing on astaxanthin, but it's
I was just wondering why they don't promote it more.
Well, they do. Youngevity or the
Well,
world.
in
It's
general.
one of the more. If you go to the health food show, I go to a lot of these nutrition shows where they sell people like me supplement, where they sell me the raw material so I can make my supplements. And astaxanthin is one of the biggest of all the carotenoids. Astaxanthin. Have you heard of that term, carotenoid? Astaxanthin is a carotenoid. Of course, what's the most famous carotenoid?
Marijuana.
No. Beta carotene. Have you all heard of beta carotene?
Sure.
Yeah, beta carotene is the most famous of the carotenoids. But wherever you see red, there's going to be carotenoids, and there's zillions of them. But you don't just need red. You need orange, you need blue, you need purple, you need the whole spectrum, all of it, the rainbow. Yes, sir.
Question around sleep.
Mm.
Your insights around that and how much sleep we should be getting.
Yeah, let's talk about sleep. That's really cool because that's a big problem. Insomnia is a big problem. Insomnia has a. Have any of you guys ever meditated?
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah.
Super important strategy. Right. But what's the first thing people say when they can't meditate? Why is they can't meditate? Exactly. See, our brain's always on. It's called the default mode network. Have you ever heard of this term? The default mode network, the DMN. The default mode network is what we default into when we're not doing anything else. Our brain is, the default mode network is the voice in the head. It's always talking to you. It's talking to you right now. This famous mathematician, you may have heard of him, Blaise Pascal. Do you ever hear of Blaise Pascal? He was a philosopher and a mathematician in the 17th century. He said that, and I'm paraphrasing here, he said, if man could sit alone in a room quietly by himself, all world problems would go away. Because he said people can't sit still. They can't not do anything. Why? And if you ever notice, we're always doing something, right? We never sit still, never stop. Why? Because as soon as you sit still, all of a sudden you're going to hear that voice in your head. We do anything. We'll do anything. We'll drink. We'll go into oblivion. We'll do whatever it takes to not hear that frickin' voice in our head. We will not stop moving because we know as soon as we stop moving, we'll hear the voice in our head. That's why people can't meditate, is because they hear the voice in the head. And by the way, the trick to meditation, if you to deal with that voice in the head, is to not pay attention to the voice in the head, but watch the voice in the head. Observe the voice in the head. Not pay attention to what it's saying. It's just going to go blah, 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 blah. Endlessly, it's going to go blah, blah, blah. So the trick to meditation is just to observe the voice in the head. Notice that when you're trying to sleep and you can't, 100% guarantee, 100% guarantee you got the voice in the head. So you got to deal with the voice in the head. That's how you sleep, fall asleep, is by dealing with the voice in the head. There's millions of ways. There's as many ways to deal with the voice in the head as there is a creative imagination. I have come up with multiple ways because I've been familiar with the voice in my head for decades now. You know what I'm saying? So I recognized the voice in my head when I was a kid, so I started to address the voice in my head. But it's still there. It's the default mode network. It's hardwired into you. One of the best ways is to focus on a body part. In fact, one of the best ways is to focus on anything. That's what mindfulness is. Mindfulness, you've all heard the term mindfulness. Johns Hopkins has a division of mindfulness. UCLA Medical School has a mindfulness curricula. Yale Medicine has mindfulness curricula. All medical schools today use mindfulness because mindfulness shuts off the voice in the head. And the voice in the head, the default mode network, is one of the major reasons why the sympathetic nervous system gets activated. So when you can't sleep, you've got the voice in the head is going and your sympathetic nervous system is activated. Anything you could do to focus on something, even if it's the voice in the head itself, will help quiet down the voice in the head. Focusing, without getting involved in its words, just focusing on the phenomena. Because when you think about it, the voice in the head is just thought. The voice in the head is how we interpret thinking. They're the same thing. Thinking and the voice in the head are the same thing. And, no pun intended, when you think about it, this is a very fascinating thing. Like, what the heck is a thought anyway? This is just neural jello in here. And how is it that potassium and calcium and different ions fluxing across neurons create, I knew I should have done that laundry yesterday. Oh, why did she say that to me? Oh, she must really hate me. And, oh, he didn't call yesterday. And my boss sucks. And all that. How does calcium and potassium, I mean, isn't that a fact? Come on, you guys. Yeah, so when you're sleeping, you want to do everything you could do to work with that default mode network. In fact, when you're meditating, you want to work with the default mode network. And everywhere in life, wherever you can, you want to work with the default mode network. Mindfulness is the #1 way to do it. And you can be mindful of a lot of things. You could be mindful, like I say, of the voice in the head. You could be mindful of your heartbeat. You could be mindful. The internal rhythms of the body are like a handy little built-in metronome for you to be mindful of. And if you just breath is the best. And for thousands of years, they've used the breath. Yogis were very fascinated. Ancient people were very fascinated that you have this thing that's, think about it, from birth to death. It's really fascinating. From birth to death, it's going in and out and in. From birth to death, it never frickin' stops. And that's the ideal thing to focus on. But it could be anything. You know, you can mix it up. You can do one where you, if you want to be a really good person, spread love to the world on the exhale, put love to yourself on the inhale. Love out, love in. Love out, love in. You will fall asleep in no time. Pick somebody in particular who's sick, or pick somebody in particular you care about who's suffering. Love out to that person, love in. Love out, love in. Give love for your body. Give love to God, Jesus, whatever the heck you want. You know, there's all kinds of ways to do it, and that's the perfect way to take care of the voice in the head. In fact, you don't have to be asleep to do it. You can do it when you're meditating, or you can do it when you're depressed, if you're ever depressed again.
Affirmations help a lot for that.
Affirmations, but you got to use affirmations correctly. You can't say affirmations, I am rich, if you're not rich. Because your body will say, screw you, look at your car, you dummy.
What about the law of attraction?
What's that? Very nice. The law of attraction is really real. But the law of attraction doesn't work with thoughts. It works with thoughts and emotions. Exactly. So if you are thinking, I am rich, but you're feeling I am poor, it doesn't work. You've got to be congruent. You've got to have everything working along the lines. The law of attraction is a law. It ain't airy-fairy. It's a law. Things are attracted. That just happens. But you've got to combine the powers and the feelings. The thoughts are a description of the feelings. And by the way, emotions are the link between soma and psyche. Psyche is thought. Feelings are in your body. Emotions are the link between the two. It's how we label the feeling. But it's really the feeling. You want to feel rich. It's somatic. It's in your body. Massage therapists. That's why I said, we weren't here, but I always say, if we really cared about health in this country, we would have national massage insurance. And everybody gets 2 massages a month. How does that sound? Wouldn't that be cool? Can you imagine how much illness we get away with? Or we would diminish if we had 2 massages a month. Oh, fuck. Screw up. 1 a week.
Swedish massage.
Yes. Yes, there would be no more mass murders. There would be no more serial killers. There would be no, we would fix our society so much because soma is where the power is. We store stuff in our bodies. People cry on your massage table, I'm sure, right? You know people cry on the massage table? You'll massage them and they'll start crying because somatically they'll remember something. When you hit a certain place in their body, they'll go back to their childhood. Because we store, this is a storage system. And it's not, what part of the body is the storage system, do you know?
The abdomen.
That's, what part of the abdomen?
The stomach.
No, not the organs. Although probably the organs too. The fascia.
Oh.
fascia, the muscle, it's like they take shape.
So
You have a
all
trauma.
organs.
What's exactly. It's the connective tissue.
Yeah.
The connective tissue is the magic. The connective tissue is when you have a stress, a tiny little dink goes in your connective tissue. And then another stress, a tiny little dink goes in your connective tissue. By the time you're 20 or you're 30, you've got this information flow in your connective tissue that is flowing along the lines of life sucks, or trauma, or depression, and it's all stored in your connective tissue, which is why massage makes you cry, or gets trauma, and it's also so healing and so therapeutic. Even, I love massage, but there's this thing called rolfing. You ever heard rolfing is when they just go right. Swedish is cool because you get the nerves and you get the sensation. Rolfing is when they tear into the connective tissue and they break open those patterns. And it has. Have you heard of rolfing? Have you guys heard of it? Rolfing has a reputation for being really agonizing. And what it is they're going into these shapes in the connective tissue. The connective tissue is micro-sculpted. It's actually micro-sculpted by your experiences, by your life. And so we store all these things, and that's why by the time we're older, we're like walking around like this, because the connective tissue has all of these, it's like the moon. It's got all these craters in it. It's got all these little pits in it, and you're walking around like this, which is why one of the most powerful things you can do for anti-aging is build your connective tissue, which is why this whole lab is here. This is the lab that connective tissue built, because all of my products are designed to build connective tissue, to drive connective tissue. In fact, that is the sine qua non, the very essence of anti-aging, is building connective tissue. And bone broth protein, by the way, is one of the best, bone broth, I should say, chicken soup, is one of the best ways to build the connective tissue. So I'm not sure how we even got started on that. All right, somewhere along that was supposed to come out. Yes?
What do you recommend for high blood pressure since the traditional drugs are so bad?
Fetal position, hot tub, massage, slow SDR breathing, slow, deep, rhythmic breathing, niacin, magnesium, exercise. I didn't talk about this, but the parasympathetic nervous system is activated by gratitude. Gratitude. We're going to have Thanksgiving coming up. When you have gratitude, you activate your rest and digest nervous system. Why do you think what should we do before we eat? Say grace. Gratitude. Grace is gratitude. Gracias. Thank you for the food. Be grateful for the food. So things like that. Gratitude. Activate the parasympathetic nervous system. Hypertension, they call it essential hypertension. There's this phenomenon known as essential hypertension, right? So what's the difference between hypertension and essential hypertension? Why would they call it essential hypertension? We have essential nutrients. What are the essential nutrients? They're nutrients that what? You have to have. They're essential to you. You have to have them. So what is essential hypertension? This is the thing. I'm not making this up. It's hypertension that is just part of you. It's just you have hypertension. It's part of you, like the mighty 90 essential nutrients are part of you. And that's what the pharmacomedical model looks at, how they look at this condition. They look at it's inevitable. You're doomed. You have to have this hypertension. That's because they can't figure out why you have it. They look all over and they don't see anything wrong with you, but you just have hypertension because they can't see your cortisol levels. They can't see your activated sympathetic nervous system. They're not even looking at the activated sympathetic nervous system. You know, people make jokes about it. They'll go, "Oh, I was so scared. My blood pressure went through the roof." You know, they kind of link our experiences to our hypertension colloquially in the vernacular when they make jokes about things. So we actually have a thing called white coat hypertension. Have you heard of this? White coat hypertension. What is that? It's high blood pressure when the doctor walks in the office because you're freaked, right? It's like, you're freaked out. Your blood pressure goes up. What does that tell you? I mean, it's all here. It's hidden in plain sight. Essential hypertension affects 80 million Americans. A huge amount of them are on beta blockers and calcium channel blockers and ACE inhibitor drugs and vasodilators and diuretics. And we medicalize this condition when we know good and well that when the doctor walks in, our blood pressure goes up. When we're freaked out about something, our blood pressure goes up. We know Driving there will make it go up. Exactly. Bathtub or hot tub, and then you stand up real quickly. What happens? What is that? What is that wooziness? It's vasodilation. We know that. My point is that we know these things. They're here, but yet the conditioning, like we started off by saying, the conditioning is so deep and pervasive and effective that if we have hypertension, I guarantee you 99 out of 100 people out there, 99 out of 100 people who are walking down the street out there are going to go to the doctor and get a beta blocker or a calcium. They're going to medicalize this thing that we all know good and well is caused by something in our environment or something in our life. And hypertension is also, I mean, you don't want to be hypertense, but we don't really know where hypertension is. There's arbitrary numbers that are criteria for determining whether you're going to have this diagnosis of hypertension. So if you're 140 over 100 or so, I don't even know what the numbers are. But these are arbitrary numbers. So some people may be running high, some people may be running low. We don't really know where that place is. So just because they say you have hypertension doesn't mean you have hypertension. It means you meet the criteria which are set by, statistically, by drug companies, basically, and by representatives of the medical model, scientists who work for drug companies. They're the ones who set the cholesterol scores. They're the ones who set the blood sugar scores. They're the ones who set the hypertension scores. I mean, it's really kind of silly when you think about
It
it.
varies all over the world, too.
And it varies every few years. They change it here. Usually they lower it. Usually they make the bar lower. All right, I'll take a couple more because you guys, you haven't even moved. You haven't even gone to the bathroom.
I'm holding it.
Are you holding it? All right. Yes.
What are your thoughts on earthing?
It's awesome. I love earthing. Earthing, you keep asking me the questions, so I have to talk. That's why I keep doing this. So, remember these yin-yangs, right? Okay, the body is yin-yang, all these balances. One of the major balances is between stress and anti-stress. Stress is measured by positive charges in the body. Positive charges represent a lack of electricity. It is kind of confusing if you're not a scientist. Negative charges represent an excess of electricity. Okay, are we okay so far? What are pieces of electricity called? Little pieces of electricity? You gotta know, you're IT. Electrons, exactly. So a positive charge has a shortage of electrons. A negative charge has an excess of electrons. And when the two hit, you get a flow. That's what a battery is. You see your battery, you get a positive charge and a negative charge? The positive side has a shortage of electrons. The negative charge has an excess of electrons. The two together lead to a charge. That's how your battery works, or a current or a flow. That's how all of nature works. In fact, life began, and I'm talking about Earth began, not life in a biological sense, but in a physics sense, in an energy sense, from the Big Bang, when positive charges and negative charges separated, creating a flow. When positive charges hit negative charges, there's no flow. But when they separate, all of a sudden you have a current. The flow is called a current. It's called physicists call it charge separation. When charge separation, have anybody heard that term, charge separation? When charge separation happens, you get current, you get flow. And this is how how the body, all of life works at the quantum level. At the electron level, at the very tiniest of levels, electrons flow to protons, negative charges flow to positive charges. Inside the body, stress is a function of positive charges. Bacteria, positive charges. Heavy metals, positive charges. Radiation, positive charges. Toxins coming out of the carpet and out of the wood, and asbestos, positive charges. All of this is about positive charges. When you're working out, positive charges. The other name for positive charges, again, I'm being general here, but one of the names for positive charges is acid. Acid is about positive charges. pH, positive charges are measured by hydrogen. pH is a measurement of how much positive charges you have. Positive charges acid is stimulated by duress, by stress. You may have heard cancer loves acid. Have you ever heard this stuff about acid? Or the inside of your body, you don't want it to be acidic. Have you heard this? Right. Acid represents stress. This is because acid is positive charges. When you're working out, the problem with that idea, that's a simplistic idea, because positive charges also stimulate growth. See, stress, when we talk about stress, we always think of it as being a bad thing. But stress is not a bad thing. Stress is how you grow. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. We go to the gym. What happens when we lift weights? We get stronger. You tear up your muscles, you get stronger. Stress makes you stronger. Stress is your friend. But if you just lift weights but don't do something else, you're not going to get stronger. When you're lifting weights, if you really want to get strong, you want to feel the burn. You want to feel the burn. What is the burn? Bingo. Positive charges. The burn is positive charges. It's lactic acid. What do you do when you come home from the gym? Eat. What is eat? Negative charges. Food is electrons to the extent that it's good. To the extent that your food is quality, you got electrons. Supplements help the electrons work. They facilitate the movement of the electrons, which is why the more supplements you have, the less food you need. Supplements are electrons, or food is electrons. So when you come home from the gym, you do your electrons. When electrons hit protons, when negative charges hit positive charges, you know what you get? Lightning. That's what lightning is. Lightning is the positive charges from the sky hitting the negative charges from the earth, or the negative charges from the earth hitting the positive charges from the sky. It's electrons flowing to protons, you get lightning. So when you have lightning, it might be the other way around, but I think that's the way it is. But in any case, when the two hit together, you get lightning. And that's where you get work. That's where you get effects. That's where your muscles grows with the lightning. Inside the cells, that's where your muscles grow. So most of us are in a condition of acid because life is filled with things that steal electrons. Light steals electrons. Duress steals electrons. Work steals electrons. So most of us are toxins steal electrons. So most of us are running positive. So when you put negative into the positive, you feel better. If you have cancer, you'll have lots of positive charges. But you know what? If your hospital's really smart, they'll take a little machine and they'll put it in your hospital room, and that machine is called a negative ion generator. A negative ion generator spews out electrons to help you with your cancer. You know that smell, that delicious smell after it rains that you love? You go out there, it's a nice clean smell. Guess what that is? Electrons, ozone, exactly. It's electrons. What ozone is, it's electrons. In Japan, if you're depressed, they'll write a prescription for you for forest bathing. The forest is one of nature's richest sources of electrons, which is why destroying the rainforest is such a big problem. We're losing a major source of electrons. The ocean is filled with electrons. It's a big electron sink. Why do people go to the beach? Electrons. The sand, electrons. The earth is constantly spewing delicious electrons. How cool is that? The earth is spewing them out, just a fountain of electrons. And the cool thing about electrons is they're so small is they can go in through your body. Now, if you're wearing something that protects you from electrons, like a sole on the bottom of your foot, you got a little bit of a problem. You're not going to get as much electrons, which is why you walk barefoot. And if you want to just be antidepressed, find some nice dirt, electron-rich dirt. And by the way, what is the richest source of electrons in the dirt? The minerals, the plant-derived minerals, the humus. If you have some nice humus, like forest dirt. Anybody ever been to, grew up near a forest or anything? Not in Colorado, there's no forest, but I grew up near a forest. Anybody grew up near a forest? You see the dirt is really rich. And did you grow up back east or anything?
Montana.
Yeah. Okay, they have forest? I don't think they have forest there, do they?
I mean, it's
The-
the mountains.
Go play in the dirt.
You play in the dirt, and it feels so good. It's the best antidepressant there is. Walking barefoot in the cool, rich dirt. The electron density is going to be a function of the minerals and the clays or minerals that are in the soil. So that's a long way of saying that electrons are awesome. The other name for electrons, FYI, is antioxidants. That's how an antioxidant works. It delivers electrons. Antioxidants are electron donors. If you're a biochemist, they call them electron donors. Vitamin C is so wonderful, it gives up its electrons so you can have life. I call it vitamin Christ because it dies for your sins.
That's the same reason the mud baths work.
It's why the mud baths work. Absolutely. And it's why the plant-derived minerals work. And it's why you give a plug for my biomimetic mineral mist. This is an electron spray. I'm going to have to save the story, but it's a really cool story. But it's all, you guys, it's been 2.5 hours. So I'm going to, but remind me to tell you the story about the electrons, the mineral electrons. It's a really cool story. I'll take one more question.
So I was going to say, I really like that when you were talking about the affirmations on putting the emotion to it.
It's very important. In fact,
It's the most important.
it's the most important.
Because the thought starts with the feeling.
Not emotions, though. Not emotions. The feeling.
Yes.
The feeling. You get the difference between a feeling and an emotion. Emotion's already one step up. It's a label. It's the feeling of being. Right now, think of whatever you want, but feel like you have it. your blood pressure is changing, your hormones are changing, your brain waves are changed. This is the law of attraction. You're changing everything biomagnetically and electronically as you feel like you're rich, feel like you're loved, feel like you're connected, whatever you want to feel it. But here's the thing: we're so conditioned, we don't realize we have access to that deliciousness. You have access to that deliciousness at any freaking moment, right?
People don't know they're putting themselves into that with a negative feeling.
From the other side. And by the way, there's this thing called affirmations versus affirmations. Affirmations are when you say, instead of saying I am rich or I am happy or I am whatever, you find reasons why you're rich. Find reasons why you're happy. Find where the happiness is. It could be your pet, it could be your puppy, it could be your mom, it could be your kid, it could be your home, it could be your friends. Say I am rich, and just see how much money you have in the bank, even if you have $1. I am rich, and feel rich, and see what you can do with that $1. Whatever it is, find a proof, because the brain needs proof. Your brain's not stupid. It needs some proof. So an affirmation is when you actually find a reason why you are whatever those things are and actually feel it. Not just make it up, but actually feel it.
Well, because it also doesn't, because at the same time it doesn't have proof, we have negative stuff too. So like.
All the crappy stuff you're saying?
Yeah, because like when, for example, somebody's like struggling with depression, a lot of the time they'll hear from someone they love or care about.
They won't hear it.
Too, that they're like worthless. And at first it might be hurt, but like once they start feeling it and like it starts turning into a habit that just whenever things go wrong, they just start.
Absolutely. Neurons that wire together, fire together, wire together. And when you change a neuronal pattern, the brain freaks out. Because the brain likes to know what's going on. It likes to be able to predict. All of a sudden you have a new neuronal pattern. Wait a minute, I am rich, I am this. And the brain says, no, you're not. You're shitty. You're an asshole. Whatever. Because that's the neuronal pattern it's comfortable with. Brain doesn't like this. It doesn't like new things. It doesn't know. It's like this constant battle between novelty, which is newness, and same old. Novelty represents change. It represents the unknown. What's the only fear? The fear of the unknown, exactly. So that's where new habits are an ultimate phobia or an ultimate fear, because it represents an unknown. You've had this habit your whole life, and now all of a sudden you have a new, oh my God, to the brain, it's like a completely it's a freaky thing, so it would rather be depressed. It'd rather be depressed than something new.
Yeah.
And that's the problem why you get caught in it. All right, you guys, you've been awesome. I don't know if you want to say anything? Ryan's a social media guy, but I took the stage for so long. You guys want to learn about social media? Ryan's got a lot to say.
Okay, guys. What's up, everybody? I'll introduce myself super quick. So I was born, my name's Ryan, and I was born with my hips dislocated, basically. And that created stiffness called stiff man syndrome or childhood arthritis or whatever they want to call it, and I was stuck like this. So 25 years of that. A lot of times I had to go to school with a neck cast on, and a lot of times I'll pull a muscle and I'd just be out for months. This is as a child, as a baby, as a toddler, adolescent, teenager, all the way up until I kind of just turned 26 years old. Thank you for driving that. It came with Tourette syndrome, it came with insomnia, it came with chronic headache, chronic stomach ache, chronic misery, basically, all the way around. I was a very miserable person because of it. And when I found Dr. Wallach, when I found Dr. Wallach's products, I was cured in 6 days flat with his products. And so it was kind of a miracle for me. And whatever else I was doing in life, I had to drop it immediately. Right? And I didn't know what that meant. It just meant that it became everything very quickly. And this business, I didn't know what the business was, but I know that I had to share this. And it wasn't for altruism. Me and Devon were talking about this yesterday. It wasn't altruism. It wasn't that I wanted to just help people. It was that I knew this, and now it was no longer acceptable for people to complain about their pain. That it was no longer acceptable for people to get sick in our circles. It was no longer acceptable for mom to have osteoporosis. It was no longer acceptable for people to complain about menstruation pains or whatever, the aches and pains of getting old. We just suddenly knew from Dr. Wallach that is not true. Right? So it became the most important thing in the world to tell the world about it. And I've done various things, in this business, trying to do this business. I helped to open a store, did consultations full-time, learned a lot that way, in how to help people directly and get the direct feedback. Now in that business, that's mostly helping older people, 50, 60, 70-year-olds. And
Wait a minute. I appreciate that.
Well, that was my full-time. I was dealing with older people, heavily overweight people, diabetics, cancer, the most serious cases. I flipped that eventually to go to Instagram, and now we deal with mostly people in this age group, and it's a huge difference, but it's all the same stuff really. So we've created this platform, and now it's become my mission basically to help Youngevity Nation, in other words, anybody who knows this message under Dr. Wallach, to communicate this further, whether it's for their own business, whether it's to help. We get a lot of people like, my aunt's got this, and my sister's got this, and whatever it is, their reason for, we're making this platform to make it easy for people. This is my full-time job doing this. I have help doing this. We have the inbox, it's called a DM. It's full all day, every day. People coming to us for help. We do Q&As on there every single day, if possible. And I live on the road now, so it's not always the easiest thing to do, but we put that question sticker up and we answer those questions. And this is partially to make it easier for Youngevity Nation, because I believe that working together, it is the way to spread this. It's influence in mass. It's very difficult to convince people individually. And we can talk about communication because I think it's the most important thing here. And most of the answers are actually quite simple. If you ask Ben, if you ask me, and you give us free reign, we can go on for 45 minutes for each question. But on Instagram, you get 15 seconds, right? So you get to boil it down to its absolute, minimum. And often that simple information is what gets people started on this whole thing, right? They take one simple piece of advice and they run with it. And we get all kinds of people who say, I did the salt. We recommend drinking a glass of salt water changes their life. Going gluten-free changes their life. Adding one product regimen changes their life, or whatever. So using this as a tool for spreading the information, for growing your own business, I highly advocate it, and I'd like to talk more about it. These real life strategies, they're good as well, but as you notice, most of the people who show up are already in the know, right? So reaching new people requires getting the information out there, and it doesn't always require doing it yourself. And so, as you saw with Ben, the Q&A is kind of the most valuable part of this. So even just a brief introduction on myself and what I'm passionate about now is spreading this message and helping other groups, whether they're in my business or not, helping them spread the message, helping them communicate it, helping them enroll people, helping them help people, whatever it is. That's the mission, and we can jump into Q&A. You had a question?
You sell earplugs?
Do we sell earplugs?
You get people to listen.
Oh, well, I was taught to give people CDs.
Oh, I know.
It doesn't really work.
I'm being a little facetious. You talk to people, I don't believe that, or they don't move on. They want an answer, but they don't hear you.
Well, it depends on how you're going about it. When I first heard this, I went and I grabbed every single person I knew by the ears and yelled at them about this, and it doesn't always work, right? You
Right.
blast through your Facebook super quick. Some say yes, most of them say no, and you're done. You don't get another chance to influence them, right? And this is why I'm all about influencing now rather than convincing. So I'll never go to someone and be like, hey, you need this. You have to somehow get them to come to you. And this is very effective still, but you can do it non-invasively, And if you even just say that you can help somebody when they bring something up, you don't have to go and jump on it afterwards, right? If someone's saying they're coughing and they're saying, I'm just getting sick, and you say, actually I know a way that you can never get sick again, kind of thing. It's to say the truth that you do know. Healthy people don't get sick, they don't get colds, they don't get flus, right? And if they're like, yeah, right, whatever my doctor said. If they're hostile about it, hey, if you don't want to get sick, talk to me later, They always teach be a product of the product, right? Be a product of the message. So when you are a product of the message, this is easy, right? There's a lot of people out there doing half of it. Their health is not at 100%. It could even be worse than it was a few years ago. But as long as you're better than you were 10 years ago and the people that you're talking to know that, that's how you can slide it in, as long as you don't force it on them, right? You chase them and they'll run away.
So what was the product that you used to relieve you of your stiffness?
Well, I was on the Tangatandrine for a while, but as Ben said, Tangatandrine is the minimum wage. And if you have a serious bone and joint muscle condition, it's not going to do anything for you, right? So you can get addicted to it kind of quickly because it's got that buzz to it, it gives you that energy. So my friends were ranting and raving about that, but they didn't have bone and joint problems, so they didn't know better. And I was taking that long enough to feel it, but it was the OsteoFX powder that did it for me. And it was 6 sample packs of that, just knocked it out. By the 4th day, I could move my neck around for the first time in my life. I stopped shaking, could sleep. It was amazing,
Do you guys have a multivitamin in Youngevity?
That's the Tangatandrine.
That's only this one?
There's a whole bunch of products in the catalog.
Yeah.
And finding what's right for everybody, it does come later. You've already started, so, you kind of went backwards. So I usually start people with this huge package of products, and then they find which ones that they like within that, and they just stay on those few. Usually it's 3 products that adds it up at least. But the OsteoFX is probably the most powerful one that we have. Tangatandrine is the most complete. Well, arguably, there's some other ones, there's some liquids, but it's the minimum wage, like Ben said. You could survive on that more or less, but there's the OsteoFX that really And there's nothing else like it in the world too. I mean, in product land, there's other things that have a similar label, and someone like me can take those ones, trying to cheap out, and our pain comes back, right? The label doesn't tell the whole story. So for many, many reasons, this combination of products is the best. That's why they talk about the Healthy Body Start Pack, because the Tangy is meant to be paired with the osteo. And then the other ones, the essential fatty acids, I got them from fish and eggs. I was in Costa Rica in the jungle when I did it, but you should supplement with it. And if you're in Colorado, you should supplement with it, truthfully.
The majority of the supplements that are out there are synthetics. About 95% of them.
Yeah.
Our vitamins actually come from a mine in Utah. They're actually found in the ground, and they have, I don't know what the number is,
It was 77.
77, yeah, of natural vitamins and minerals.
The form and the quantity and the recipes is kind of the most important thing. And the formulations that Dr. Wallach has come up with have just been absolutely incredible, you know, in terms of results. And everybody remember this, you know, that's trying to do this. And when people are hostile to this and they say, well, I don't know, we sell results, right? And there's only really one way to do it, is to try it and see. And when you compare these products' results versus other product results, we're the best in the business, you know, with no competition. But there's a lot of science and stuff behind it that it's easy to get bogged down in it. The Instagram here, our Instagram account, Wallach Warriors, it's the kindergarten version, I like to say. I try and make it extremely easy. We can go into a ridiculous amount of detail on how to be well. Ben is great at that. Ben's one of the first people that made me understand this, by the way. Like, seeing him, and it was in Indiana when I first saw you, and I was like, wow, I suddenly got it. I don't even remember what you said, but I got it much more than just understanding this whole message, and like, you can be well kind of thing, you know, you can do this. And it was after that I got cured. So, and I want to give Taylor a chance to speak too. I know it's been kind of a long day too, but we can talk about health questions as well too, and anything that you guys are dealing with in your own businesses. Like, it's the most major complaint, by the way, is like, how do you get people to listen? Well, now people come to us, right? Yes. And the more that you increase your posture by becoming healthy yourself, by becoming confident yourself, learning the systems, learning the skills that are behind it, people will recognize those changes in you, and they will come to you.
Yes, Ryan is a go-to, and I've been doing this for 20 years. Ryan is like one of the best go-tos for the business, for social media, for understanding how to sell product. Matt, I mean, your wisdom is completely invaluable to somebody who's starting a business. You guys are interested, take advantage of Ryan.
But also it comes from
15,000 people on Instagram.
It comes from study, though, as well, right? Like, I try to teach people about, not teach people, I try to force products into people, right? So I was doing tattoos at the time, actually, and I put Tangy Tangerine in my tattoo studio because everyone had bad skin, right? I'm touching them, like, you need to fix this, right? Everyone's complaining about being sick, everyone's complaining about being overweight, and I realized after a while you can't just tell people this, right? So you have to study it. And this is 3-4 years later now. You study the communication, you build those skills of communication. Now people come to us all of a sudden, right? You don't communicate in order to tell people better. You learn this stuff in order to handle them when they do actually ask a question. Because that's the key too in sales. We had a little sales thing up here earlier. I mean, there's love and there's trust that moves towards sales, but it's really getting them to ask a question. The whole game is to get them to ask a question. We spew content out on here, 4 posts a day at least, to get people to ask a question, right? If they're getting educated, they will ask a question, and nobody's going to buy anything serious, no serious purchase, until they ask at least 3 questions.
Well, if they're asking questions, then they're open to an answer.
Correct.
And if they're not, like Ben said, you can't focus on the people that aren't, right? Some people don't want to get better, period, right? Some people are married to their illness, they identify with their illness. I'm a diabetic. Right?
Right. They do.
Sorry to hear that.
It's really hard. Sorry to hear that. You know, and I used to try and like beat them over the head. You don't have to be a diabetic. They don't want to hear that, right? You
Or
say,
take 12.
You say, look, if you ever want to do better again, just let me know, right? So it becomes casual. And it has to be. We're recording it too. We'll put it on YouTube too. And this stuff is so much more important. I mean, so many of us have this prospect list that we can't get through to. Right? And like it's communication that matters so much more than the health stuff. The health stuff is easy. If you pay attention to the account long enough, it gets super repetitive, right? And all these questions that come up, my answer is take the nutrients, avoid the bad foods, salt, digestion, circulation, that's it. I only got 15 seconds, right? But it's always the same basic thing, and people get bored of it because it is boring. And once you know it, that's all it is. You actually realize, bam, it's actually this simple, and then it becomes communicating to the people that you've already got.
Being sick is boring too.
Being sick sucks, right? But we're here to promote health. We're here to promote lifestyle. Again, if you live it, you know, at any age. And by the way, I couldn't move for the first 25 years of my life, right? So even just me being able to go up and go like this, the people that I already know are like, what, right? And now, not just on this account, on my own accounts, we show us hiking. You know, we show us living, doing things, and this generates conversations. And no matter what, it's going to come back to what do you do to live this lifestyle, right? Hashtag lifestyle. And this is the whole health thing. And any conversation that you're ever involved in, if you stay with that conversation, it will move into health. Period. Right? No matter what age these people are, it doesn't matter. And you don't have to have a health account to do it. It's whoever you are and whoever you're communicating with, it's going to move to health. Because we're in health crisis out there, and because nobody knows this, we're literally the only people in the freaking world that are out there saying everybody can get better, everybody can heal by taking what the body needs, by avoiding what it doesn't. We have this simple formula. There's a million other companies out there. Nobody's out there doing this, literally. They're selling product or whatever. I mean, we make it difficult on ourselves because we actually have to teach people how to be completely healthy, right? We're teaching people how to be well. We're teaching them how to avoid what's killing them. And it's a way more complicated sales pitch or process that we have to get you to commit to a lifestyle, right? If it was just as easy as taking tangerine, it would be pretty easy. You know, the only reason that we do this now, and I want to pass it to Taylor as well, and maybe we can all tag team some questions here for you guys as well, is that I've sold a lot of product, right? A lot of product at the store, especially tons of product flying off the shelf. I was pushing it hard. It does not work, right? It does not work in getting long-term results. It doesn't help people at the fundamental level. It doesn't bring them up to 100%. Some people get lucky like me, 6 days and I'm cured. There's a ton of reasons, a ton of variables for that, why that worked, and that does not work in the average person, and it's not a good sales formula. And if you do get anybody, this is part of my thing too, and why we start them big, and we get a big commitment from them, is because most of us have enrolled people who aren't there anymore. Most of us who have enrolled people or sold them something, then they didn't get a result, right? And it's because they didn't do the full commitment, because they didn't get all the information, because they didn't do the salt and avoid the foods and da-da-da-da. We don't want to waste that time, right? Whoever we do get, and the person who wants to keep their diabetes, you can't help them. But the person who does want to do better, if we service them correctly, we get them the right products, we get them the right information, we stay with them, make sure that they're doing it. You don't have to harass them, but just stay with them.
Support.
Then we actually have a business, right? And this is way more valuable for me now to focus on fewer, bigger enrollments rather than just selling minerals day and night, right? Because it just doesn't make the difference. So I want to pass the torch here to my good friend, Dr. Taylor Mitchell. And you can take it from me, I'll leave that up. You can have this if you like.
Hello, everyone. So I'm a naturopath here. I lived most of my life in Colorado. So I just want to talk about my story. So when I was 10 years old, I was put on medication. I was diagnosed with ADHD. And right off the bat, I was given a big dose of medication. And over the years, I started to notice side effects. I remember being 12 years old here in Golden, Colorado, asking my doctor, hey, aren't there side effects associated with these drugs? And he told me, oh, well, your brain works differently than everyone else's, so you're not going to experience these side effects. So he convinced my parents, so I continued. My grades were better, so I continued to take these drugs. And as the time went by, my symptoms kind of got worse. He decided to put me on different drugs, swapped them out for other ones, different side effects generated. And then at the end of the time, I was on Prozac and Adderall and Vyvanse all at the same time for 4 years of my life. And then, interesting, Dr. Wallach's Dead Doctors Don't Lie CD kind of fell into my lap. And I listened to his CD. For the first time in my life, I had a eureka moment. Something made so much sense, and it was so interesting. And I went on YouTube, and I found Pharmacist Ben, blew me away. I had tons of eureka moments. And I looked up ADHD, and it kind of made sense that it's a blood sugar imbalance. And I was like, well, yeah, everything I eat sugar constantly, chemicals. And so I kind of like, yeah, my body's not metabolizing sugar efficiently. So I took the supplements, I started eating a healthy diet, and all the symptoms that the drugs caused went away. I actually quit the drugs cold turkey. I don't know if you're supposed to do that. Thank God you had the nutrients. And yeah, so it's interesting. I don't think I even had problems to begin with. So all these problems that were developed from the drugs were alleviated from just taking the supplements, taking the recommendations. And I met Dr. Wallach, and I kind of brought up to him, hey, I want to be a doctor too. I want to be a naturopath. I want to help people. He pointed me in the right direction. and now I'm so passionate about helping people, and it's kind of awesome just how easy it is. And not only that, but the products taste good. So, like not only is this fun to help people, it feels good. You feel better about yourself. You can help others feel better and look better, feel better, and then also you can make money from doing that, and it's a wonderful experience. That's what I'm here for. Thank you.
Wow.